And welcome into Hoopsville, everybody. It is the 19th of February. We're just, feels like we're just getting going, but we're really not. We're closing out the rest of this season very quickly, as we just have 10 days essentially left in the regular season, a little bit more than that. March 1st will be the end of the regular season, and we are gearing up towards that point in time. And so welcome into the show, as we will certainly look at conference races that are important between now and then, and talk to a number of coaches and guests coming up that we'll have have some big games coming up, really, here in Division III basketball. If you've got questions for us, tweet us at D3Hoopsville, hashtag Hoopsville, email us hoopsville@d3hoops.com, or join us on Facebook at facebook.com/Hoopsville. That information is scrolling at the bottom of your screen. We will certainly take your questions throughout the show, and especially at the end of the show. We will be happy to chat Division III basketball with you. Our guests today we'll jump out and talk Puget Sound women's basketball with a 21 ranked Puget Sound basketball team. We'll also talk DePauw women's basketball with the 8th ranked team. Their head coach joining us on the show. We'll also talk men's basketball. Our City of Salem School of the Week will be Averett. They'll be joining us out of the South region. We'll talk to St. Mary's men's basketball coach Chris Harney, and we'll also talk to Clarkson's men's basketball coach. That's all coming up here on Hoopsville today. We'll also hear from Charlie Titus after 40 years of being the basketball coach for Mass Boston. We will talk to him, or hear from him, as he closed out his career, from a wonderful little video from behind the beacon from the Mass Boston Athletics Department. They shared that video with us. We will get to hear from that as well. So that's all coming up on a jam-packed show. We will certainly go past our normal 2 hours. Not that normal 2 hours actually ever really exists in our lives, but that will all be coming up here on the show. Also talk regional rankings, which came out today. I don't think there were some major surprises. I was a little maybe surprised with somehow things are still sitting. For example, I'm a little surprised Albertus Magnus is sitting 9th in the regional rankings. Thought they would move up. I know they don't have the greatest resume in some of the categories, but they only have one loss on the season. And I think at some point in time that has to be recognized. It is clearly something I think the committees are battling with, but sitting 9th behind, for example, a 16-7 Springfield squad seems a bit weird. I know Springfield has a pretty good SOS, but it seems like all NUMAC and NESCAC teams have good SOSs. And I think that's resulted in some extra NUMAC and NESCAC teams making the NCAA tournament in the past few years. Nothing against those teams. They certainly are doing well and scheduling well, but I would argue there are some out there who can do better or have a better chance. We'll see how that all translates, but Albertus Magnus seemed a little surprising to me that they stayed as low as they did in 9th. At some point, you got to reward a team for still winning. How you do that, I don't know. Let's be honest. Their SOS is a 475. That is certainly not one of the worst in the regional rankings department. Penn State Barron has a 442, and that's pretty bad. So, Albertus Magnus, unfortunately, is going to be in a situation here where they're going to have to win their conference, I think, to avoid being eliminated. But it seems weird to say that. If they lose in the conference championship game like Staten Island did last year, are they seriously going to be off and onto better plans? I don't know. That's that quandary. The same goes for a Penn State Barron. 2 losses right now. That would be their 3rd if they were to lose and be in that large bid with a 440-something SOS. Not great. Same thing goes really for a Marietta, though Marietta has a much better SOS, so maybe not the best example I could use. St. Norbert would be another example of that. And, Albertus Magnus sits there behind Springfield, but yet St. Norbert is ahead of Illinois Wesleyan. And a lot of the data, the spread and differences are the same. So for some reason, St. Norbert. Now, apparently St. Norbert may have some common opponents advantage over Illinois Wesleyan that Albertus Magnus has over nobody, or doesn't have on anybody. We'll put it that way. So maybe that's in play. But still, some interesting developments on the men's side. Overall, I don't think I had a major problem with the rankings. I thought Virginia Wesleyan might fall behind Eastern Texas Baptist. They did. I thought there was a good chance the Mid-Atlantic would stay the same, and for the most part, it did. I'm a little surprised Franklin and Marshall is still in there. Their SOS is 480, and I think they're getting a little bit of a nod they shouldn't be getting. But they just took another loss to Gettysburg, which is not reflected in those regional rankings, so that might shake it up by the time we talk about these regional rankings next week. But I think the Centennial Conference will get 2 teams in, and Franklin Marshall to get in is going to have to win the AQ, I believe, because that'll be one more loss on their resume, and I think now they're in trouble. On the women's side, really the regional rankings, I think, panned out the way I expected them to, but a couple more losses have happened. Wednesday night's a tough night. Salisbury losing to Marymount, first loss that Salisbury's had since the beginning of the year. At the same time, McDaniel lost to Johns Hopkins last night. That's all in the Mid-Atlantic region. McDaniel's in a situation similar to some others, like we talk about on the men's side, Albertus Magnus and others, where McDaniel's going to have to get in on the automatic qualifier despite very few losses. 2 at this point. They take one more, it's 3, but their SOS is so low, you just can't imagine they're going to get in. So fascinating goings-ons, as it were, in Division III basketball with 10 days left of competition, both of the regular season wrapping up, and then conference tournament action. Of course, some conference tournament action starting up as soon as Saturday in the NESCAC, the NAACC, and elsewhere. And, of course, with the UAA, they don't even play a conference tournament. They've got 3 games left, 2 coming up this weekend and 1 the following weekend. But for everybody else, pretty much tournament action starts next week. And it'll be fascinating. And a lot of Pool C teams sitting on that bubble now are going to either need to go and make that run to the AQ or hope there aren't a lot of upsets. Upsets can do wonders to popping bubbles, and that can start as early as now. So it's, if you've got questions for us, we can certainly give you our thoughts and opinions on things. You can email us, hoopsville@d3hoops.com. You can tweet us at D3Hoopsville or hashtag Hoopsville. And, of course, you can also email us, Hoopsville@D3Hoops, or Facebook us, I should say. Facebook us, Hoopsville, at facebook.com/Hoopsville is how you can do that. So lots going on, and we'll try and break it all down for you and try and answer some of your questions if you have them. Certainly would love to hear from you, and we'll do our best to answer your questions as best we can. Again, lots of good coaches on the show today, and we'll hear from a lot and talk about situations like wrapping up the conference play and positioning yourselves for the best possible, and at the same time talking about getting ready for conference tournament action and how important that conference tournament action is for so many teams across the country. It's not cut and dry anymore. There's a handful of teams who certainly are locks to make the NCAA tournament. But even things like, for example, Whitewater falling behind Augustana this week in the regional rankings, based on the fact that they lost to Stevens Point, handing them a second loss on the season in Division III, 3rd overall, moving them behind Augustana, who has 4 regional losses, 4 overall, goes to show you that you can't assume you're in a safe spot. And listen, Whitewater's probably a lock to make the NCAA tournament, but they're not a lock to host at this point because another stumble could hurt them. So that you got to keep that stuff in mind. Why is Augustana ahead? Well, they got a better SOS, they got a better results versus regionally ranked, and they've got a better head-to-head. Obviously, a 1-0 over Whitewater. Whitewater only has the record, really, against Augustana. And when you get it that close and the records and the SOS are that different, it's going to go the other direction sometimes. And it went the other direction. So hats off to them, to be sure, for doing what they needed to do. The question now comes up is, can Whitewater not take another loss so they can guarantee themselves a host? I think they'll host, but it's just an example of just nothing's guaranteed. And again, we'll have now the big thing is You've got other changes taking place. So now, we had results versus regionally ranked that affected these rankings. Well, now those rankings reset. Those results versus regionally ranked reset. And we now take another look at it next week. That's key. Remember, it's not once ranked, always ranked anymore. It hasn't been for a couple of years now. So now we're talking about making sure that, okay, who's now regionally ranked? And that's why not seeing the data and not seeing the regional rankings at the very end of the year has an even more profound effect. Because we don't know who's ranked. So thus, we don't know what their results versus regionally ranked opponents are. We know their win-loss. And for the most part, we know their SOS now. But that's it. We only know, we know common opponents. And we know head-to-head. But we don't know results versus regionally ranked opponents. And we don't know other criteria. And we don't know how those criteria are being used because we don't know who's in what order and what place. So, this gives us an idea of what committees may be thinking. But there's no guarantees it's exactly cut and dry how we expect it to be. Of course, in 10 days, the committees will be talking about who's in and who's out of the tournament. In 11 days, we're going to be talking about who's in and who's out. It's tricky. It's really, really tricky. If you got questions for us, tweet us at D3Hoopsville or hashtag Hoopsville. Email us hoopsville@d3hoops.com. And, of course, on Facebook at facebook.com/Hoopsville. We'll try and answer your questions as best we can throughout the show and give you our opinions. That's, I think, the most important part is sometimes it's just strictly our opinions. But it's based on as much information as we can pull together ourselves. And from years of experience as well. So, for example, I'm talking to some Scranton people this week. Scranton may have put themselves in a world of hurt with a loss to Susquehanna last week. It's the last thing they needed to do was take another loss. Scranton is near the bottom of the regional rankings, and last year's showed that I don't think one at-large team came out of the Mid-Atlantic. It was Dickinson, and the SOS numbers in the Mid-Atlantic this year are average at best. They're not great. Another bit of information that I've kind of gleaned is it sounds like, from what one report or one source has told me, is that anybody with below a 500 SOS probably can just eliminate themselves from the Pool C conversation. I don't know if that's true, but that's what one conversation seems to have gleaned. Another conversation has gleaned that anybody below a 667 win-loss percentage can probably eliminate themselves from the conversation. That goes to show you that while SOS is important, you still need to win. And while winning is important, you still need to have a decent strength of schedule. It's where those two kind of come hand in hand and don't necessarily equal the same thing for everybody. I think the SOS is a good thing for Division III considering how challenging we had QOWI and prior situations. Is it perfect? No. Could it be tweaked? Maybe. I've had a couple ideas of tweaking it without doing the math, but one might be because I'm starting to see schools who only play road games in out-of-conference action, and maybe they're only playing them because they have no choice. But you almost wonder if they're trying to take advantage of the situation of getting that 1.25 versus 0.75 at a home game. So let's change it around. Maybe we don't punish teams for playing at home, but we do reward them for playing road games. So instead of a 0.75 weighted average on the home games and a 1.25, and again, this is on the men's side only, for away games, we change the home games to 1-0 just like a neutral game. Maybe? I don't know. I got to see the math. See if that makes any sense. On the flip side, we know about the 0.03 to 2 game reference. Now, that does not mean it automatically equates to a 0.06 to 4 game reference, SOS to games. However, I wonder if there needs to be a bell curve. So if a team, let's say, is 0.03 apart on SOS, and they're 2 games apart in win-loss, let's say the weaker SOS has got the better win-loss, then we would call those two teams even. At least in the eyes of the NCAA statisticians, you would call those two teams even. That if you were to flip the two into different SOSs and win-losses, they would come up with the same. So if I'm 16-4 and you're 18-2, and my SOS is 0.03 better, then our record and SOS are considered even. But what if our SOS is 0.05 different? How many games does that equate to? I don't know. No one really knows. But maybe there needs to be some type of bell curve to let you understand that, so that those with really gaudy SOS numbers aren't rewarded too heavily, and those with really weak SOS numbers aren't punished too heavily. Because there's some point where you can't control your SOS. We've talked about Albertus Magnus and Penn State Barron and St. Norbert. They're not in good conferences necessarily. Yes, you have to improve your out of conference, but they're not in great conferences. So is there a bell curve that can help guide that? For example, Bates is number 2 in the region, and apparently talk is that there was discussions in the committees that they should be by some that they deserve to be number 1 because their SOS is a 619. That's unbelievably high. But they're 18-5. And 4-4 versus regionally ranked opponents. Could Bates being in second in the region right now be getting too much of a benefit because they have a 619 SOS? So on a bell curve type scenario, maybe that 619 comes back down to earth a little bit in reality. I don't know. We'll see if we can figure the math out and see if that makes any sense. Going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to jump into some women's basketball action. We'll jump out to the West Coast. Talk to Puget Sound, I believe. We'll double-check that. Or DePauw. I'll double-check my timing. That's all coming up here on the show. If you got any questions for us, tweet us at D3Hoopsville or hashtag Hoopsville. Email us, hoopsville@d3hoops.com, or join us on Facebook at facebook.com/Hoopsville. You listen to Hoopsville, presented by D3Hoops.com and the National Association of Basketball Coaches. More Hoopsville right after this.
College basketball lives in Kansas City at the College Basketball Experience at Sprint Center. The College Basketball Experience is the place to get your game on. It's not a museum, it's an experience you won't forget. Discover the history of the game in the National Collegiate Basketball Hall of Fame, featuring the Gallery of Honor, Mentor Circle, and Honor Theater. Suit up in the latest CBE logoed Nike gear at the CBE Hoop Shop. Elevate your game today and visit the house that college basketball built.
We've got more schools than Division I, more fans than Division II, and more upsets than March Madness. There's 800 programs with over 11,000 games leading to 2 national championships. And we've been covering it all for over a decade. From Eastern to Occidental, from Puget Sound to Piedmont, from Southwestern to the University of New England, and from Hope to Calvin. Nobody covers Division III basketball like we do. We're at D3Hoops.com at www.d3hoops.com.
I know sports is important, but having the academic part along with it is a big plus.
I've discovered in myself, a newfound ability to overcome adversity at all different angles. At a Division III school is really shaped around you developing yourself as a complete individual. The end result in my mind is you just become a very well-rounded person.
Before I came into college, I didn't really think I'd be able to balance so much. It helps a lot that you have a family with your team that can guide you.
With a D3 school, there's a lot of time for other opportunities. The coaches expect a lot of you during soccer, but after soccer, that's your own personal time to really find out who you are and other opportunities that you can pursue.
By balancing all of my interests, basketball, my leadership skills, and academics, I'm able to better prioritize my life and to manage it.
And welcome back to Hoopsville, everybody. Hope you're enjoying the show. If you have any questions for us, tweet us at D3Hoopsville or hashtag Hoopsville. Email us, hoopsville@d3hoops.com. Of course, join us on Facebook at facebook.com/Hoopsville. We're going to start off with women's basketball action, and certainly one of the teams that is garnering some national attention, to no surprise, is the Puget Sound Loggers. And their women's basketball team certainly playing some pretty darn good basketball, as I almost have gotten accustomed to seeing from them. And we figured about time we went out to the Northwest Conference and talked a little bit of Loggers basketball. So, again, if you have questions for us or our guest, you can always tweet us at D3Hoops or hashtag Hoopsville. Email us hoopsville@d3hoops.com or join us on Facebook at facebook.com/Hoopsville. As I go to the shot, I just realized we got a problem with it. So hold on, Coach. I hear you. I just got to fix something. But not that there's a major problem. I just looked at it, and it's edited really weird. But we'll fix that here shortly. Lori Payne joining us on the Skype, as it were, as we fix the really weird picture that we apparently did there. Coach, first and foremost, congratulations on what is certainly another solid season for the Loggers at 20-3 and 11-3 in conference action.
Yeah, thank you very much. It's been an exciting year for us.
Certainly. That'd be an understatement, as you guys are sitting in a battle for second with a big game coming up, appropriately enough, against the team you're playing in second. You got to get past Whitman first, who's right behind you by game. So appropriately enough, we figured we need to go talk to the Loggers, who are going to have two big games this weekend. I assume there's excitement, but maybe a little bit of apprehensiveness as well.
We're very excited. It's a huge weekend for us. Right now, us, Whitman, and Whitworth could all be the second, third, or fourth seed going into playoffs next weekend. So big weekend. We're very excited that it's at home. We traveled over to Whitman and Whitworth, and we play them back to back just with how our conference works out. And we were able to get Whitman on the road, but lost a tough one to Whitworth. So we're very excited about having them back on our home floor during the last weekend, senior weekend. We have a pretty experienced team with a lot of seniors, so the energy and excitement will be very high.
That might be an understatement. Obviously, a lot on the line. You not only have second place, which you want to lock up, because no one's catching George Fox with 2 games left. So you want to lock up second, certainly, and be best positioned as you can. You're tied with Whitworth, and, of course, you got a game with Whitman behind you. Obviously, there's 100 scenarios that could take place here, tiebreakers and all that. We won't go into that. But what's I almost want to say it almost seems more exciting to finish the season with a big game or a set of games like this than to almost run the risk of running into kind of a ho-hum type of weekend.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we finished up on the road our last 5 games, and so we needed to be road warriors there, and we were able to take care of business on the road. And then, after our last game, we just talked to the team about, from here on out, even though there's still a weekend left in conference, we're treating it like playoffs, like postseason. Because at this point, every team that we're going to play is a postseason caliber type of team. And I think it just speaks tremendously high of the Northwest Conference in that there's 4 teams that have really, really great records, and that 4th right now being a team that played in the national championship game last year. So I just think it speaks very highly of our conference and how tough it is.
Yeah, it's certainly been tough. Last year is a great example, talking about basically having to play through each other, not only in conference tournament action, but in the NCAA tournament action. Somebody always, whether it be Whitworth or Puget Sound or Lewis and Clark or somebody, has certainly then played well in the tournament and gone deep. That almost makes what you're about to do and what you're trying to do this weekend that much more important, because you really do want to have that momentum forward and carry yourself as far into March as you can.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. First and second place in our conference hosts, and so we would love to have the opportunity to host that first round of playoffs, the semifinals, and then kind of go with where that takes us. But hopefully, speaking postseason stuff, I mean, I would hope that the strength of the Northwest Conference has been nationally known over the last couple of years, and we would hope that we would get an opportunity to play some other teams outside of the Northwest Conference to really show how successful we can be as a conference. There's
a woman down the hall from you who would give you the answer as to how hard or easy that is. Former committee chair Robin Hamilton, who certainly knows better than anybody. But yeah, I mean, how do you then prepare your team? I mean, last year's a great example. You almost can go, hey, remember last year? How do you prepare your team for not only this weekend in the conference tournament, but what is inevitably going to be a tough NCAA berth?
Oh, to be the best, you have to beat the best. And I think that at some point you're going to face, I mean, in the NCAA tournament, you're going to face tough opponents night in and night out. And just so happens that you might have to face a tougher one in a George Fox or Whitworth or Whitman in the first and second rounds. And that's just how it is. But at the end of the day, you know, you have to win and move on. And at some point you're going to face them anyways. So just have to prepare them. And I think the familiarity helps with your team because they've played them before. And, you know, it's the one time against Fox, we got blown out. The other time it was a very close game. And so I think we all know we can play with each other.
Of course, you have that loss to Whitworth, 83-77, but got the win over Whitman, 64-46. So almost kind of revenge from both sides. You'd love to get the game back on Whitworth, and Whitman would love to get the game back on you guys. Of course, everyone's chasing George Fox. Before we get out of conference action, how tough is George Fox this year? How tough have they been? And are they a team that's beatable?
You know, I think every team is beatable, but they're playing very, very well right now, and their veteran players are playing composed and poised down the stretch. I mean, they've won a couple of big games with the overtime game to Whitworth, and you know, we took them right down to the line. And so I think that you know, that's where they get their edge a little bit is their great players make big plays at the end of the game, and I think that their veteran leadership comes out, and that's something that we're striving towards because we do have a veteran team. And I think if we can get in a position where we're able to play down the stretch, and those players are making big plays and we're playing composed, I think that we have an opportunity to win some close games.
Let's talk about the season so far. You guys started off with a bang all the way out here in Baltimore. I can never get to the women's basketball tournament at Hopkins that weekend because I'm always tied up with about 600 other things in crossover season. But you played Lynchburg and beat them, and then beat Johns Hopkins here in Baltimore. Then you returned home the next weekend and got 2 more wins. You did a little bit more traveling, mainly in Washington. Traveled down, didn't really get into California. You seemed to get everybody to come up to you. Right. But continued the winning ways until you faced off in that first game against George Fox. So you got off to a really good start to the season, and you've got a plethora of teams in here. We mentioned Lynchburg, Johns Hopkins, St. Benedict, Concordia Moorhead has some Minnesota teams came and visited. UC Santa Cruz, the Banana Slugs came up and said hello. Colorado College got out of the Colorado Springs area to visit. And again, as I mentioned, Cal Lou. I mean, you really it seems this year Northwest attracted a lot of different teams this year.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's important. It's difficult to get Division III games out on the West Coast, just with limited options. So this year was very important for us to be able to travel, and I thought that it was important for our team with the high hopes coming in that we would have a good year and have an opportunity to advance to the NCAA tournament, that we traveled and got that experience. You know, this is the first year that we've been in the mix since I've been the head coach here, and we planned for that. You know, the Johns Hopkins tournament was a first-class tournament. I mean, they ran it incredibly well, and it was fun to be able to go to a tournament where winners play in the championship game and losers play in the consolation. And we hadn't been in that situation before, except in the Northwest Conference playoff games. So it was important for us to start the season off that way, and hoping that we would end the season off that way in a win and move on type of scenario. I've been the head coach here, and
excuse me,
we planned for that.
Doing a couple of things here to fix problems. When you see, you know, the opportunities like to travel all the way out to Baltimore or to get teams from Minnesota to come to you, how do you balance whether you're going to make that big trip or receive those trips or where you're going to go? Northwest is starting to travel a little bit more than they have in the past, but where's that line in the sand, as it were?
Well, I think, you know, we wanted to take our team on a trip where we could actually make it a little bit academic as well. And we had a great day visiting Washington, D.C. And fortunately for us, you know, it worked out where Johns Hopkins had a tournament opening for us. And so we jumped at that chance. But it's great to have a counterpart in Pacific Lutheran. We've been able to team up this year and in the following years to bring teams up and be able to play 2 Division III teams. And then also being able to return those games. And next year we're planning to go back down to California. But I think just having a variety of games, but the importance of playing those Division III games and the West Region games, just on the national level when it comes to the end of the season, just to see those common opponents and how you matched up with teams outside of the Northwest and outside of, just the California conference with the SCIAC. So, it just, obviously winning games is the best, but if you can get those wins against D3 opponents, I think that, that shows the country where you're at with your program.
You stole the tagline that I use with the Hoopsville Classic. I tell teams, I'm like, hey, if you want to make an educational trip, we're not that far from D.C., we're not that far from historic Baltimore, obviously, and come on out to the Hoopsville Classic, and it works. And so obviously you took advantage of that.
Yeah, we did, and fortunately, teams we're located in a great area just outside of Seattle that teams are interested. There is sightseeing things to do, and other than just coming to play the games, and I think that's a big draw.
You have 6 seniors on this squad. This is a senior laden squad, though not all of them are necessarily the leaders in the stat lines. I get this sense this is the type of team you want to take advantage of and make that run in the NCAA tournament. You're led by Emily Sheldon, who is a junior, 14.5 points a game, 5 rebounds as a guard. But then you got Amanda Forshea, the senior, 13-plus points a game. Katie Ansley, the senior, 12.5 points a game. Both of those, by the way, Forshea, 8 rebounds a game, and Ansley, 6.5 rebounds a game. You got a lot of guards who like to crash the boards. Then a sophomore in Alex Noren, and then the rest. So while you've got a lot of seniors, and you certainly have some senior leadership, you've got some underclassmen stepping up. But with that many seniors and that much leadership, I suspect this is kind of one of those, hey, this is the season to take advantage of this.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's been our talk since the beginning of the season. We set a goal out as we wanted a 20-win season. These players came in. These seniors are actually the first group of recruits that I brought in when I got the head coaching job down here. So it's been so much fun to watch them develop. I brought them in talking, hey, we can compete for a national championship. We can get there. And they've worked their way up and just grown so much and matured so much to where they've arrived. And that's an exciting piece as a coach to see players and teams that set a goal out and then they achieve that and they're at a position where they've arrived to reach those goals.
You certainly have a lot of underclassmen as well. Don't want to say it's all seniors. And so certainly building towards the future is key, but this is obviously one of those unique years you want to take advantage of. You're not D3 by nature. Your coaching and playing career has all been kind of surrounded in D1 and D2 and the like and elsewhere. What drew you to Division III and how have you liked your first 5 years?
I love it. I mean, I think that University of Puget Sound is such a great university and the people here are amazing. And I think that the caliber of student athlete that we get it truly is student athlete. And that is really what drew me to the Division III level. And, I had dreams of being a head coach and an opportunity arose at an incredible university. And, I was fortunate enough to be given the opportunity to start my head coaching career here and take this program, continue it. It's been a very successful program until I got the job, and we went through our ups and downs. And but I think that we as a program have finally started to figure out the direction that we want to go, and getting the student athletes in here that fit kind of my style. And I brought a lot from the Division I mindset. And, if you watch our team, you'll see we get up and down the floor a lot. I like the transition. I was a shooter in college. And so, my assistant coach gets on me a little bit because she's very defensive oriented. And, I kind of have that offense in my heart. So, but, a lot of the same systems that we run here are ones that I've ran at previous programs within my Division I background.
Nothing wrong with yin and yang on
Exactly.
On a coaching staff. When I look at your team too, again, Puget Sound's now in the conversation. As you pointed out, a little bit of a rough stretch there, kind of a slightly above 500 squad for a couple of years, while Lewis and Clark and Whitworth and George Fox certainly got the attention. Now you're in the equation. Whitman's in the equation. Is this a sign that this Northwest Conference, while it's been tough at the top, is now even deeper and may be one of those juggernaut conferences you have to watch out for?
I absolutely believe that. I mean, just the top 4 teams and even the 5th and 6th team in our conference, they had good preseasons as well. So we came in and there was a mix from 1 to 6, and on any given night, even the teams 1 through 9 on any given night, they have an opportunity with the type of players that they have to be able to knock someone off. And it's I think it's good. It prepares you for postseason, which again, this would be the first year that myself and our team is in the mix with that. So it's exciting because you need to be prepared for that so that you can go and advance further than just, okay, we played one game in the tournament and now we're done and we finished our season. So I think it's important because we do have high goals and aspirations to move on into the tournament and not just get there.
Well, I appreciate you coming on the show and talking Puget Sound women's basketball. I know I've already gotten some up in the Northwest who certainly have enjoyed the conversation. Appreciate you chatting about your Loggers, and good luck the rest of the way. Certainly big games coming up this weekend, but as always, we give our guests the final word. Any final thoughts you want to share with those who may be tuning in?
Oh, we're just very excited for this weekend and heading into the potential of getting into postseason play. And I think that you'll be hearing about the Puget Sound Loggers, hopefully. That's the goal. I'm
pretty sure we are. Thanks so much, Coach, for joining us, and good luck the rest of the season.
Great. Thank you very much.
Lori Payne joining us here on Hoopsville. We appreciate her taking the time. Whitman and Whitworth on the schedule at home coming up here on Friday and Saturday. Whitman is the first one, then Whitworth the second. Battling it out to get in second place. And obviously, as she said, get that first game, or at least semifinals at home. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we'll talk more women's basketball here on Hoopsville. If you got questions for us, tweet us at D3Hoopsville or hashtag Hoopsville. Email us hoopsville@d3hoops.com or join us on Facebook at facebook.com/Hoopsville. More Hoopsville right after this here, of course, on Hoopsville.
I used to never really talk. Ever. I was scared and shy. It was hard to look at people's faces. I was afraid if I said something wrong, everyone would laugh at me. But then I started to play golf with Special Olympics. I made friends and won lots of gold medals. But I learned more than just playing golf. Special Olympics helped me to find my voice. And now everyone else is speechless.
We've got more schools than Division I, more fans than Division II, and more upsets than March Madness. There's 800 programs with over 11,000 games leading to 2 national championships. And we've been covering it all for over a decade. From Eastern to Occidental, from Puget Sound to Piedmont, from Southwestern to the University of New England, and from Hope to Calvin. Nobody covers Division III basketball like we do. We're at D3Hoops.com at www.d3hoops.com.
Division III allows you to be able to give yourself to other things. Not even just participate in them, but really get involved with them if you want to.
There's a lot of interaction. It's not just sitting back, taking notes. You're actually doing hands-on things and better preparing yourself for your major.
Choosing a Division III school, I've had the opportunity to develop my leadership skills and to be more involved on campus.
Division III in athletics, affords students the opportunity not only to participate in intercollegiate athletics at a competitive level, but also gives them the opportunity to, engage in the other interests in their campus and in their lives outside of that sport and outside of the academics on the campus.
And to have opportunity to have time to join clubs and being able to play basketball, it allows you to just be able to do everything you want to do. I wouldn't change it for the world.
And welcome back to Hoopsville, everybody. Trudging along right here on this February the 19th. Playing more ahead still. We got a women's basketball coach from DePauw, Chris Huffman, on hold, as it were, to join us on the show here momentarily. We'll jump down into the South region for our City of Salem School of the Week for the Averett Cougars men's basketball team. will join us. And then, of course, coming up, we also will talk to Clarkson and St. Mary's. That's all still ahead. Plus, we will hear from Charlie Titus, head coach at Mass Boston, who is retiring at the end of this season. Mass Boston did a nice little expose on him. We get to hear from him. We'll hear that little bit of video, as it were, coming up on the show as well. If you have any questions for us, tweet us at D3Hoopsville or hashtag Hoopsville. Email us, hoopsville@d3hoops.com, or join us on Facebook at facebook.com/Hoopsville. Of course, a couple years ago, the talk of the town, as it were, or certainly the toast of the town in women's basketball, were the DePauw Tigers, as they rolled themselves into a national championship, an undefeated season. That concluded 2013, and since then, they've only lost 3 games. And certainly there's a lot of teams out there who would love to have that just in one season. It's been a while, though, since we talked to Coach Huffman and her squad. We figured we better catch up with the coach as quickly as possible. So we're going to the Hoopsville Hotline. And joining us on the Hoopsville Hotline is coach of the number 8th-ranked DePauw Tigers, Chris Huffman. Coach, welcome to Hoopsville.
Good to be here, Dave. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. I appreciate you taking the time. 22-1 on the season. Probably not too that surprising for many people. Undefeated at 15-0 in the NCAA. Of course, last time you guys went undefeated in the conference was back-to-back years in 2012, 2013, and led to a national championship. I'm not saying there's any omens necessarily to the rest of the world out there, but you guys are having maybe a pretty good season and quietly under the radar.
Well, we're happy with where we are. With that being said, we still think we can get better here in the short amount of time that we have left. So it's been a fun group to coach. We have experience in the guard court, which has allowed our forwards to kind of get some experience under their belts here.
22-1. Last year wasn't that bad a year either at 30-2. Of course, unfortunately, coming to an end against Whitewater I'm doing the math. Is that the semifinals? No, I'm sorry. Elite Eight.
Yeah,
That's
finally.
Right. I couldn't. I jumped you a game there for the fun of it.
We would have liked that.
Yeah, I didn't have the extra game after that. It made no sense to me. Unfortunately, losing to Whitewater. Of course, Whitewater, a team you're certainly darn familiar with, as the year before in the national championships, they were the team that was there as well with you, is what I'm trying to get at. I'm slowly working my way into some sentences. And Whitewater was the team that you guys had to face off against in the championship and beat them, so a little bit of a rematch. What's it been like to have that much success at DePauw, a national championship, some incredible seasons? You guys have won 25 games or more almost every season in recent history. Is it almost kind of status quo now? If that makes any sense.
Heavens, no. It's certainly what we want to achieve, but it gets more difficult every year. It's harder and harder each time we go out on the floor. But we like to have, we like to coach players that have that kind of drive, and I guess that's the blessing right now is we have these players who really are motivated and driven to come to work every day.
I suspect in some senses it is work, but it's definitely not class work, which many would admit is easier. This season so far, you got that game against Whitewater and at least revenged last year's result, and then beat Franklin. Lost to Illinois Wesleyan, who's actually kind of struggling just a little bit this season, but got back on the horse, as it were, and have been rolling along ever since. Certainly conference play has been one thing, but you've taken on some good, challenging out-of-conference teams like Millsaps. Even Stout's been having a good season. But obviously a lot of your schedule's conference action. And while your target's big, you've been controlling that, it seems, and I don't want to say easily, but at least been moving along through the NCAC with relative ease, especially when you got a 4-game lead in the conference right now.
Well, nothing has seemed easy, that's for sure. We have dodged some bullets. We maybe could have had some losses very easily, but we've survived somehow. We've got some strong competition, some really talented teams that are coming on in our conference. I think, Wittenberg is extremely talented, Denison, and I could list every team. I think if you look at our race, I think there's 5 teams vying for second place or third place.
Yeah.
It's really been a competitive year. And everyone's game is stepping up.
I know everything changed when DePauw came into the conference in the first place. And I know on the women's side, I think a lot of people who thought they were going to succeed saw you guys roll in and it changed everything. But, Wittenberg's competing in Oberlin, Denison and Ohio Wesleyan, a 9-6 or better, everyone there. Worcester about the only one on there who's really struggling this season, maybe Hiram as well. What's the makeup of this conference? You talk about that battle in the middle, but is this a conference that's been improving over the years, or do they have some teams that just continue to struggle and you're hoping for the best?
Oh, man, I think it's really a competitive conference. We've got great coaches, and they work their butts off. And I think a lot of the talent in the conference is young. So we've got some young talent that gaining experience at a place like Denison. Sarah does such a great job there, and she's got a young, extremely talented team. And then you have Sarah over at Wittenberg, who has an experienced, talented team. And they're well coached. Everyone plays their butt off, and there's not an easy game. There's no game that I go into thinking, oh boy, it's nice we can relax today.
Phew. This one's going to be cake.
Yeah, it just doesn't happen.
You're outscoring your opponents by 22. And you have 5 seniors on the squad, and they pretty much are the leaders in the stat columns. Savannah Trees, a senior, 15.5 points a game. Emma Ondick, 12.3 points a game, senior. Hannah Douglas, a senior, 11.3. Lauren Abendroth,
you got it.
9.3 points a game as a senior as well. And then you hit a sophomore and a couple juniors and a freshman. Your other senior in Hannah Lukemeyer, 21 games. She's more of your, she's not the one who's necessarily leading the stat columns, but she certainly is getting the minutes and helping in other ways, I'm sure. So
right.
This is really senior driven. I don't remember if your championship team was as senior driven. I think it might have been, if memory serves. How key has that been for you?
That experience that we can put on the floor really has made a difference for us. Makes it a little scary for the future, but this year, our guard court, we have such great depth, really, and they've had so much, big game experience.
Yeah.
So it's really been a blessing. We didn't have that same experience in the forward court, and so we weren't piecing it together by any means, but we were playing, and each game they're getting better now. So it's less defined in the forward court because we have different players we can do different things with, but that guard court is pretty clearly defined, and I love the experience that we can put on the floor.
Is there anything you can take from that championship year that you can use moving forward? Is there anything you take from last year's experience that you have moving forward? Obviously, the senior class has a championship ring, but is all those experiences, but they're not necessarily something you can translate into this season?
Well, I think you can always tap into a little bit of everything. I think we say dream and dream big, and why not us? But we've got some work to do for that to be us. Still playing into March. Or you look at dropping a game. The last regular season game last year to Ohio Wesleyan, a very good Ohio Wesleyan team.
Yeah.
So we use those types of experiences to keep us motivated and focused on every day that we prepare to play somebody. So that's probably the biggest thing we do, is to try to stay very, very consistent with all our preparation.
Talking to Chris Huffman, number 8th ranked DePauw, 22-1 on the season, 15-0. In conference action, of course, the NCAC being that conference. Coach, you've been there for 22 years. You've now won over 500 games in your career. You certainly have one of the best, records in the NCAA, at least in recent history, if not for a very good long period of time. But you're in this region now that has got a lot of good teams. And since you started, I'm pretty sure you probably agree that women's basketball has grown and gotten deeper by quite a bit. But what's the biggest change you've seen from your point of view?
Oh, boy, you are so correct. Division III basketball, the play has increased dramatically. I think it's a trickle-down effect from all the D1s. It's all the kids that are playing year-round and training. And so, I think it's more and more competitive at every level right now. And you look at our region, you're so right. Our region is stacked always. If you can get out of the region, you're in good shape. But we've got the Thomas Moores and the Hope Colleges and the Calvins. And not a group to be taken lightly at all. Boy, they all can play.
Well, I was going to say, you mentioned about the D1s trickling down. Sydney Moss transferred in and has changed the equation completely in the Great Lakes. But as you point out, you got Thomas More, you got Hope, you've got Calvin now. John Carroll has certainly become a much better team. You've got yourselves and certainly others in that Great Lakes. How do you size up the region? And furthermore, how do you figure out how you think you can play? I mean, are you going to have to play through this region, do you think, this year? Or do you think you can find a way to play through the other side of the region?
You never know where you're going to be sent, that's for sure.
Yeah.
I think it was a few years back, and we were sent to Hope College, and I think they kind of called it the pot of death.
Yeah, our bracket of death, which we never see on the women's side.
You remember it was an undefeated Denison team. They hadn't lost a game. It was WashU. Everyone knows WashU. It was Hope, and it was us. And we were the first ones out, and we had a decent team. So you never know when you're going to go. And I think at that time, there were 3 teams in the top 10. So it's geographic, and it's where the NCAA is going to put you. And so you might have the toughest game of the year in round 1. And so it matters what you do during the regular season. It sure does, but it doesn't guarantee you anything.
When you look at, I'm trying to call up the regional rankings quickly, which I had a minute ago and then, promptly put away for whatever reason. When I look at the regional rankings in the Great Lakes, I don't think anything surprises me, but it's you, Thomas More at top, Calvin second, you guys are third. John Carroll behind you, then Hope. Then Transylvania, who enters the region this year and certainly is having a tremendous year. Then St. Vincent, Baldwin-Wallace, and Ohio Northern. At least it's spread out that you might have to go through somewhere else. But where you're located, Hope is in your range. And then the central region, in the Y-axis, CCIW, WashU, Chicago, who's improved, is in your range. You don't get it easy at all, do you?
No, I think we'd volunteer to go anywhere to get out of this area. No, it is such strong basketball. You look at, the national champions several years have come out of this area of the country. Great coaches, great teams. So it's a handful to deal with. But we're happy to be talked about in that group and hopefully have a chance to play somebody here down the stretch.
Happy you're talked about in that group? You won a championship 2 years ago, have lost 3 games since.
Oh, I know, but every year's a new year, and this year going in, I never would have dreamed. I thought we could be good with our guard court, but I didn't dream that we would be, sitting here at 22-1. I thought we'd have a little more difficult time. So I'm proud of how our team has stepped up, and I still look at it as we have a lot of weaknesses, and we sure have a chance we still could get better. So we're still trying to coach the pants off of these guys here.
They're loving it, I'm sure. Big game coming up against Ohio Wesleyan to round off the season coming on Saturday. Of course, Ohio Wesleyan is fighting to be best positioned in the postseason as they possibly can. And you talk about last year's finish, of course, against Ohio Wesleyan, and they unceremoniously gave you guys a thank you note, as it were, with a loss. And of course, that was their first loss of the season. I suspect that is fresh in your mind, and you don't need to remind this team necessarily that winning on Saturday is just as important.
Oh, absolutely. We want to finish the season strong here, and we'll be celebrating Senior Day, and that's quite a powerful group that we have that we'll be saying goodbye to. Who knows if we'll get to ever play at home again? So, and we want to make sure we're on an upward trend with our play. So we're focused and we're preparing for Ohio Wesleyan. They're extremely talented. When I look at them, they're hard for us to defend. They've got a lot of pieces to the puzzle that we'll need to be at the top of our game.
Which is better, the loss to an Illinois Wesleyan squad earlier in the season, which at least I won't add any more to that, or a loss like you took to Ohio Wesleyan last year that many would fear could have derailed you but also re-sparked you?
So what's better or what's worse?
Yeah.
I think it's how you respond. So I don't know if one timing is better or worse than the other. The response that you have is really the key, and so you got to move on pretty quickly. And I think we were able to do that in both scenarios, and hopefully we'll hold things together here as we finish out. But
well, Coach, it's certainly enjoyable to watch the Tigers. I had the honor of seeing you guys win your national championship, and I say that because it's so hard when you have two Final Fours at the same time to get to both of them, and we took advantage of Amherst, or the Atlanta experience for Division III on the men's side to see you guys win that championship in Holland. But based on that, how excited are you that it looks like we're definitely moving forward to a combined championship in 2016 in Indianapolis for the women?
Well, it's interesting. You know, I don't know what that does to the timing of the season.
I know. They got to work that out, don't they?
Yeah, so I don't mind us standing alone. You know, it's in our minds and how we prepare every day. You know, the big time is where we are. So I'm okay with the way we're doing it now, and it'll be interesting to kind of learn the whole structure of that new format that will take place.
Yeah, definitely different than the men's. The men's had an extra week thrown in on top of what was already going to be a long, drawn-out thing anyway. So I know they're going to play the semifinals and then play the finals, but who knows how they do the rest. But we'll figure it out, as they say. Coach, I appreciate you coming on the show and joining us and talking about your Tigers. As always, we give you the final word. Any final thoughts you want to share with those who may be tuning in?
Well, I just want to thank you for the work that you do. You know, we think Division III basketball and Division III athletics are a pretty important piece of young people's lives, and the amount of time and effort you put into covering it, certainly appreciate it.
Well, thank you, Coach. I appreciate the kind words. Good luck the rest of the way. We'll look forward to seeing how you do in the NCAA tournament, and, well, at least try and avoid the big boys as long as you can.
That's right. I hope so.
Oh, great.
Hey,
Take care,
so much,
Coach.
Dave.
Absolutely.
You too. All right, bye-bye.
Chris Huffman joining us here on Hoopsville. Again, number 8th ranked team, 22-1 on the year, 15-0 in conference play. Will take on Ohio Wesleyan. Kind of in a grudge match from last year, as we pointed out. They lost that game last year on the final game of the regular season to end their undefeated run. Of course, that was a heck of a run, if you remember. They basically went 50-some-odd games undefeated, just like FDU Florham went 53 games this season. Really 60 games, now that you think about it. 34-0 last year, and then rolled along and took that loss to Ohio Wesleyan. They garnered, 6 more wins after that. So they went 54, I believe, before taking that loss. So certainly impressive by DePauw, and we'll see how things translate for them the rest of the way. If you got any questions for us, tweet us at D3Hoops or hashtag Hoopsville. Email us, hoopsville@d3hoops.com, or join us on Facebook at facebook.com/Hoopsville. We did get a question. Yeah, we'll get back to that in just a minute, actually. We got more ahead. We're going to switch into men's basketball action at this point in the season, or in the show. Coming up, we're going to have our City of Salem School of the Week. We'll also have a moment to talk to St. Mary's men's basketball. We also will talk to Clarkson men's basketball. We'll also hear from Charlie Titus from Mass Boston as he prepares for his last regular season game of his basketball career as head coach. You're going to listen to Hoopsville, presented by D3Hoops.com and the National Association of Basketball. More Hoopsville coming up right after this.
We've got more schools than Division I, more fans than Division II, and more upsets than March Madness. There's 800 programs with over 11,000 games leading to 2 national championships. And we've been covering it all for over a decade. From Eastern to Occidental, from Puget Sound to Piedmont, from Southwestern to the University of New England, and from Hope to Calvin. Nobody covers Division III basketball like we do. We're at D3Hoops.com at www.d3hoops.com.
I know sports is important, but having the academic part along with it is a big plus.
I've discovered in myself, a newfound ability to overcome adversity at all different angles.
At a Division III school is really shaped around you developing yourself as a complete individual. The end result in my mind is you just become a very well-rounded person.
Before I came into college, I didn't really think I'd be able to balance so much. It helps a lot that you have a family with your team that can guide you.
With a D3 school, there's a lot of time for other opportunities. The coaches expect a lot of you during soccer, but after soccer, that's your own personal time to really find out who you are and other opportunities that you can pursue.
By balancing all of my interests, basketball, my leadership skills, and academics, I'm able to better prioritize my life and to manage it.
College basketball lives in Kansas City at the College Basketball Experience at Sprint Center. The College Basketball Experience is the place to get your game on. It's not a museum, it's an experience you won't forget. Discover the history of the game in the National Collegiate Basketball Hall of Fame, featuring the Gallery of Honor, Mentor's Circle, and Honor Theater. Suit up in the latest CBE logoed Nike gear at the CBE Hoop Shop. Elevate your game today and visit the house that college basketball built.
And welcome back to Hoopsville, everybody. Hope you're enjoying the show here on February the 19th. If you got any questions for us, tweet us at D3Hoopsville or hashtag Hoopsville. Email us, hoopsville at d3hoops.com, or join us on Facebook at facebook.com/Hoopsville. We keep being remiss not to mention a few things here, and so we should get it done as we hit the second hour of this show. First and foremost, we always change our setup just a little bit with some of the shirts. You'll notice a Puget Sound shirt, and we had them on the show earlier. I want to thank Robin Hamilton a couple years ago making sure we got that shirt. Got a University of Chicago shirt here. There is another shirt over here in the corner you really can't see. We're going to have to do a better job of displaying that. And I am wearing a Middlebury basketball shirt here this evening. Of course, we always have the Ohio Wesleyan Bishops number 22 signed by Lauren Hill shirt over our shoulder. We always have the Wheaton women's basketball basket that they sent us. Of course, last show we had St. Norbert's t-shirt, which they sent us. If you'd like to send us something, please feel free. Email us or tweet us, and we'll get you information on how you can send us something that we will display in our set at some point in time, or even wear it ourselves. Speaking of wearing it, if you want us to wear your t-shirt and maybe have a guest of your choice on the show, support the Hoopsville fundraising project. We're only a little over about 60% of our way to a very smaller goal than last year. That 60% is about a quarter of the way to last year's fundraising mark. So we're a little low, and we would appreciate any of your help. We're kind of like PBS. If you sign up for a certain perk, you will get a perk, like a T-shirt, for example, or get a guest on the show. So please don't hesitate to support us. We will try and send out some tweets here in the rest of this hour and a half that we're on the air. The fundraiser has about 10 days left in it, so any help you can provide, we would certainly appreciate it. I should also point out, if you can't, please send it on to others you may think can support us. All the money goes to helping us do this show and improve our set, improve our cameras, improve our computers, and allow us to go on the road as well. We told the SCIAC, Coach Laverne's head coach, Rich Reed, that if we were to raise $7,500, we would carve out some of that money to take a trip to the Southwest, to California, Southern Cal, and go see the SCIAC in person and maybe even do a show out there. So that's what we would spend the money on, and we certainly appreciate any support you can give. We've had some wonderful support so far. We would love to have some more. Let's get on to our City of Salem School of the Week. And this week we're selecting what team out of the South region. And that team is a team that was 12-14 last season, is 16-8 right now with one game left, a big game in conference action. That's the Averett Cougars, and the men's basketball coach David Duino joins us on the Hoopsville Hotline. Coach, thanks for joining us. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, Dave. Appreciate you having me on.
Absolutely. First and foremost, congratulations on what is absolutely a terrific season so far.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. Really was crazy with the timing of the whole situation, but guys have really bought into the way we're doing things, and really excited to hopefully finish strong down the stretch.
You've had a couple of spots in the season that you could have derailed easily. Lost to Lynchburg, got back on the horse against Emory Henry to start the season. Guilford tripped you up. Then you got back against Johnson & Wales, non-Division III Johnson & Wales, the North Carolina version. Got a couple games under your belt. Then the ODAC came back to bite you, and Bridgewater and Randolph-Macon, and then Maryville got you. Then you guys went back on a winning streak before Greensboro tripped you. Then you went back on another winning streak, and then William Peace and Methodist tripped you. And now you're back on a 2-game winning streak with a big game against William Peace coming up to try and lock up this conference perfectly, I should say, to lock it up good, as it were. How are you feeling going into this final game?
Well, our guys have really showed some toughness throughout the season. We talk about when adversity hits, really, what kind of character and what your team is made of really comes through in those moments. And we've been able to answer the call a couple of times when we've hit kind of a losing streak or someone's been able to trip us up. And, we're really anxious to get on the floor tomorrow, but we also understand that we're facing a very good team that's very well coached, and we're going to need to be at our best tomorrow to try to win that game.
I think that's the other thing that jumps out at me too, though, is the top of this conference. William Peace is making a play. They're only 13-10, but they played a lot of non-Division III games, but they're 9-3 in conference. So while they haven't had a great out of conference, they're right in play here, and they're certainly a young squad in Division III. I think this is only their third season in the USA South, and then Piedmont's lurking. Greensboro's back there, and Maryville. Certainly, there's a hodgepodge of teams at 7-6, and Methodist, etc. But it's kind of two teams that weren't in the conversation recently that are leading the way.
Yeah, the staff at William and Peace, Coach Shields and his staff, has done an amazing job, recruiting and getting their guys to play their system. They're extremely well coached. They play really hard. They really have some matchup problems at the post because their post could really step out and shoot the ball. So they've done an excellent job, once they've gotten into conference play and playing really consistent night in and night out. And the rest of the conference, everyone is so well coached and there's a lot of talent. Even the bottom teams that are not going to be making the conference tournament have given teams a lot of problems. So it's every night you got to be ready to play, and you got to understand that if you don't bring your best, that you're capable of getting knocked off by anybody in this conference.
Talking to David Duino, head coach for Averett men's basketball team, as we mentioned, is 16-8 overall, 10-3 in conference action. Coach, this is a team that, by all intensive purposes, maybe wasn't the pick of the litter, as it were, to win the conference. But you guys have taken full advantage of that. What's been the secret this season? You talked about buying in just a little bit. You talked about this team kind of doing what you guys needed to do. What was the turning point, maybe?
Well, I think it starts back from last year. We had a group of sophomores that are now juniors, and a couple of guys that were juniors that are now seniors that will be celebrating senior night tomorrow night, that had some success in the conference, and then they were knocked out as the 2 seed by a good Ferrum team last year and didn't make it past the first round of the conference tournament. So I think there was some hunger there to begin with, and then I think me coming in as a first-year head coach, coming in with a chip on my shoulder as well, trying to prove myself and try to get them to, play to the best of their abilities and as hard as they can every night. I think that buy-in to what I was trying to sell, along with the hunger that myself and that the team had, really connected well. And we've been hungry night in and night out. There's been 1 or 2 games where I don't think we've played to our capabilities from an energy standpoint, but for the most part all season we've been a pretty focused group, and a group that has tried to make sure that we played with the energy level and focus level that we need to compete with the teams that were on our schedule.
Yeah, I mean, the significance, obviously, being a first-year head coach, you served, about 6 seasons or some odd, 7 seasons at North Carolina Wesleyan. We'll talk about more of the history in a minute, but you do come in August, so you're kind of not late to the party, but certainly team hasn't gotten to know you before they enter the campus for the very first time. What was it like to meet them for the first time, and how did it go at the beginning? Were they buying? You say they bought in, but how quick did they buy in?
It was interesting. I actually got hired on the first day of school here. Classes started on that Wednesday when I accepted the job, and I got down here as fast as I could. That Saturday morning I was down here after classes started, and we had our first team meeting on that Sunday. And it was me just kind of telling them a bit about myself, where, me being familiar with the league. I've been in the USA South now 7 years. Now this is my 8th. I was 7 years with NC Wesleyan, so I was familiar with the program, familiar with all the guys on the team from watching them throughout the years and scouting them as a coach at NC Wesleyan. So I think the fact that I've had success as a coach in this league at NC Wesleyan, and the fact that I knew the guys that were on the team, my message was, we wanted to be the hardest playing team. I thought defense and rebounding was an area where we could be really good. They led the conference in rebounding last year, and we wanted that to be an emphasis for us this year as well. But I think just the energy that I tried to bring into that first meeting and trying to really make them feel like they were.
Coach, did we lose you?
There you are. Are you there?
Nope, there you're back. You're back.
Well, I don't know where you lost me.
It's something about energy.
I thought the energy that I tried to bring into that first meeting, and that's I'm a high energy type of guy. The energy and the fact that I wanted to make them feel like they were my guys, and that I knew that we had something special here, and that I believed in them. I think they bought in right from the start, and They were on board. They were excited. They were happy for, I think, a renewed energy in the program. And I feel like right from the start we had a connection, and it's been growing ever since.
Talking to David Duino, head coach from Averett, 16-8, 10-3 overall. Let's talk about your guys. Led by Trevor West, 12.5 points a game, 3.5 rebounds a game. Of course, West, one of those juniors you talked about. Bradley Robinson, 11.5 points a game, hauling in a little over 5 rebounds a game, also a junior. Charles Bryant, one of your sophomores, 11.5 points a game, 8 rebounds a game. Aaron Westhussing, I hope I'm right. No, not Aaron. I'm sorry. I jumped the gun there. Cody, I was looking at the wrong list. Cody Stevens is who I'm trying to mention at 10.6 points a game. Stevens is one of those seniors. And 10.5 points for Carter Jones, and Jones is another junior that you have. Of course, one of your big guys inside at 7.3 points a game. Want to make sure I mention those guys because they're the ones who get the stats at least in the double figures. You've got 5 of them, but you still got other guys who are contributing. How key has it been to get what is a wide range of class participation, as it were? Sophomores, juniors, seniors.
Well, it was huge. Obviously, when you got juniors in your program that have been in the league for 3 years and have experience, you want them to be your leaders and kind of show those younger guys the ropes and kind of set the tone for the way things need to be done. And that group of juniors and our senior Cody Stevens has really done a great job being leaders day in and day out for our program. And we like to think that the fact that we have five guys, even 6, I would say 6 or 7 with James Contreras and Devontae Pinnell are guys that could come in and put the ball in the hole a little bit. We like to think that we're well balanced and that we could really play a team game and move the ball and use different guys' talents to our advantage. We're not a team that's going to go out there, I think, and put up 90-plus points a game or anything like that. We're usually between 70 and 80 points somewhere, but they bought into playing team basketball and really executing the things that we're trying to do, and we think that we have some versatile guys that could do different things out there, and we're just trying to put them in positions where they could be successful.
Well, they certainly have been successful. I'm a little surprised you're at a school that doesn't have Wesleyan in the title. I was pretty sure you were kind of locked, stocked, and barreled as a former Virginia Wesleyan Marlin who scored 1,000 points in his 4 years under Dave Macedo, and then becoming an assistant coach under Macedo, and then going to North Carolina Wesleyan. I figured you could go anywhere to Connecticut, Ohio, Illinois, West Virginia. There were a lot of Wesleyans you could go to. Are you allowed to be at an Averett?
Yeah, that was the problem. When I actually applied for the job, they told me that they were questioning whether they should even give me an interview or not. But no, I've been fortunate to be a part of 2 really good programs with Virginia Wesleyan and NC Wesleyan, and I like to think that I paid my dues as an assistant for 10 years at this level, and hopefully Averett feels as good about me as I do about the situation here and the people that are here.
How soon until we see Virginia Wesleyan on the schedule?
We are actually going to their tip-off tournament next year.
I had a feeling that was coming. I had a feeling the call to Coach DeMacedo was very quick.
Yeah, it was. You know, me and Coach Macedo have a great relationship. I think the world of him, and obviously that program is, if not the best in if not the best in the nation, one of the best in the nation. And he's done an amazing job. You know, since I was actually his first recruit, he got the job. As the head coach, the year I was coming in as a freshman, so we've been really tight for a long time, and he knows, I think, the world of him. But you know, anytime you could get those type of ODAC teams on the schedule, we feel like that prepares us for our conference later in the year.
Of course, you're right in the heart of the ODAC as well there at Averett. It's not that hard to get to some ODAC teams at all from Danville, Virginia.
Not at all.
No, pretty darn easy if I do say so myself. Of course, it's been downhill for Macedo since you left. I mean, you win a national championship with you as an assistant, and we haven't seen hide or hair of Virginia Wesleyan since.
Yeah, you're right.
At least at the Final Four, obviously. Hey, Coach, if you don't mind, City of Salem School of the Week, we have a little fun and play some trivia.
Okay.
We have thrown, and I do mean thrown, some questions together, thanks to your SID and myself. Regarding the team. I know you're new, so we'll try and take it easy, but some of these might be some doozies. They can range from anywhere from program history, athletics department history, or school history. We welcome you to try anything you can at this. We certainly appreciate if you can't, but we're just having some fun, so don't worry about it. And I'm not promising you any of these are terrific. They're just what I came up with as we kind of looked at things. So first and foremost,
as long as you don't get me in trouble with my AD, I'm good
no,
to go,
I don't think so. I don't think we will, but who knows? I could be wrong. Let's start off. Let's see if you know a little history of the school. The school was chartered in 1859. Averett was not its original name. What was its first name?
Ooh. I might have to pass on that one.
Well, you can at least try and take a stab at it, I figured.
I'm at a loss, man. I don't want to come up with anything.
I'm not holding it to you just yet.
Danville Community.
That's not a bad guess. It was actually Union Female College. One of the first female colleges, all female colleges, especially in that neck of the woods. Of course, the school was changed to Averett. Why is Averett such an important name in the history of Averett College?
Oh, boy, man. You're going to get me in trouble around here.
That's okay. You're your first year. You're entitled.
Ooh. I'm not sure, man. I don't have anything for you on that one.
Oh, I'm not too worried about it. Basically, Joseph James Averett was the first kind of man who ran the school. Is basically with paraphrasing there a little bit. We'll try and slide into some a little more fun stuff for you. We'll talk about the program. How's that sound? Men's basketball has won. Let's see how I want to word this. Has won 5 conference championships and made 4 NCAA tournament appearances. How far is the furthest Averett has gotten in the NCAA tournament?
Ooh, I want to say Sweet 16.
You are correct. Sweet 16 in 1990. Well done.
I'll go 33%.
Yep,
okay.
Not bad. How many men's basketball players have been USA South Conference Players of the Year?
Ooh. 2?
Close. 3. 3.
Okay. You got the.
What? Well, who are they? Yeah, I do.
Rumley.
Yep, Jonathan Rumley.
DeMarcus Morrison, maybe?
Yep, DeMarcus Morrison, yep. And then there's one more.
That's the one I'm missing.
Tony C. S-E-A-Y, Tony C. I'm going to throw a bonus one in here later, but the first question I have before we get to your bonus one is, There are 3 current Averett head coaches who are All-Americans as student athletes. Can you name them?
Current coaches. Bren, our softball coach.
Yeah, nicely
who played
done,
volleyball.
Bryn. Bryn Taylor. She was softball head coach, but she was an All-American in volleyball.
Volleyball, that's right. I'm trying. Was Philip Wilson one?
No.
Any? I'm at a loss on the other 2, my man.
It's all right. One of them you're going to hate yourself for.
Probably.
One of them is Ed Fulton, who's the baseball coach. He was a Florida State All-American. The one you're going to hate yourself with, at least in my opinion, on the women's basketball team, Liz Hickey.
Okay.
She was
she's gonna give it to me tomorrow on that one.
Yeah,
I'm
she
pretty
is.
Sure.
She was an All-American at Mary Wash. I saw her play. She was darn good.
Yeah,
darn good.
She was actually out there today in practice getting a little bit.
Oh, was she?
Well, so,
I can imagine.
Yeah, she was.
I can imagine.
She was. She
was
blocking shots left and right a little bit today. So.
She hasn't lost that touch. I can clearly tell. She played at Mary Washington. I got to see her play after seeing you play at Virginia Wesleyan. Coach, I'll throw in one bonus one just for the fun of it. How many national championships adorn the halls of Averett, and who are the teams?
There's one, and it's men's golf.
I tried to throw you off with the teams. You're right. It is one, and it is golf. Hey, Coach, thanks so much for coming on the show. I really do appreciate it. Fun to chat with you about Averett, and certainly big game tomorrow to lock up first place. And good. We wish you luck. We also wish you luck in the conference tournament. And hopefully, man, even see you dancing a little bit in the NCAA tournament. Maybe you'll see Virginia Wesleyan a little earlier than your schedule right now.
Well, we're just going to take it one game at a time, and and hope that hopefully that's in the cards. But we got a long way to go before that, and hopefully tomorrow night we're ready to go.
Man,
but I appreciate you.
Macedo has trained you well.
Yeah. He's he's a mentor of mine, and it's always about that next one, and down the road we'll control that when we get there.
Well, congratulations again, Coach. Thanks so much for coming on the show. We'll look forward to talking to you down the road.
Thanks so much, and really appreciate it. Had a lot of fun.
Absolutely. Thank you, Coach. Take care.
Take it easy.
David Duino Jonas from Averett, head coach. Again, team is 16-8 overall, 10-3 in conference action. Big game tomorrow at home against William Peace for the top of the conference. If you don't think that's an important game, you're nuts. You want the USA South teams to come through your neck of the woods. Of course, I shouldn't say come. Yeah, that's tomorrow. William Peace still has another game against Greensboro on Sunday, but they need to win to guarantee to lock, to make sure it's first place, and so does Averett. So, big game coming up there tomorrow for those two teams. We're going to take another break. When we come back, Clarkson men's basketball in the East region will join us and talk to us. Talk about another first-year head coach. Also, we'll talk to another coach who's averaged 20 wins a season in his career at St. Mary's. Chris Harney will join us. And then we'll hear later in the show a little bit from Charlie Titus, head coach at Mass Boston. You're listening to Hoopsville, presented by D3Hoops.com, the National Association of Basketball Coaches. If you have any questions for us, tweet us at D3Hoopsville or hashtag Hoopsville. Email us, hoopsville at D3Hoops.com, or join us on Facebook at Facebook.com/Hoopsville. Plenty more Hoopsville ahead. Clarkson and St. Mary's and Mass Boston all ahead. Plus, your questions. We answer them here on the show. You're listening to Hoopsville, presented by D3Hoops.com, the National Association of Basketball Coaches. More Hoopsville right after this.
Every season starts with hope and a dream to play for the ultimate title, to become NCAA national champions. And you can experience it live at the 2015 NCAA Division III Men's Basketball Championship, March 20th and 21st in Salem, Virginia. Hosted by the Old Dominion Athletic Conference and the City of Salem. Affordable tickets now available. Visit ncaa.com/tickets today and make a date with champions.
I did receive a non-athletic scholarship upon entering school.
I got the presidential scholarship, which was huge for me.
I think there's more opportunities for academic scholarships in Division III.
I did receive academic scholarships. Just being involved on campus, being a leader, all those things combined kind of get me recognized. It's a great experience for me.
College basketball lives in Kansas City at the College Basketball Experience at Sprint Center. The College Basketball Experience is the place to get your game on. It's not a museum, it's an experience you won't forget. Discover the history of the game in the National Collegiate Basketball Hall of Fame, featuring the Gallery of Honor, Mentor Circle, and Honor Theater. Suit up in the latest CBE logoed Nike gear at the CBE Hoop Shop. Elevate your game today and visit the house that college basketball built.
And welcome back to Hoopsville, everybody, here on Thursday the 19th. Of course, this is Regional Ranking Day, which is new. We've been talking about that at the beginning of the show. Not normally on your Thursdays, but thanks to server upgrades, they are on Thursday this week. Came out this morning, right about 10 a.m., and we'll be back to our normally scheduled programming on Wednesday. Wednesday afternoon, some point, those rankings will come out. Next week, of course, next week will be the third and final ones that we get to see. The fourth ones, we will not get that opportunity. But you already know this because we've been talking about it on the show. We'll talk about it plenty more down the road. If you have any questions for me or our guest, tweet us at D3Hoopsville or hashtag Hoopsville. Email us, hoopsville at d3hoops.com, or join us on Facebook at facebook.com/Hoopsville. I'm going to jump up now into the East region and talk to some of the teams we haven't had a chance to talk to. And, of course, one of those teams this year would be the Clarkson men's basketball team out of the Liberty League, in a pretty good fight, we should say, for that Liberty League conference. Certainly something that the conference probably likes to see, but it's Skidmore on top by a half game with Clarkson and Hobart sitting right behind them. So we figured we should talk to the Golden Knights. So joining us on the Hoopsville hotline is their head coach, Jeff Gorski. Coach, welcome to Hoopsville.
Hey, Dave. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Appreciate you taking the time. First and foremost, congratulations on the season at hand. Regionally ranked number 6, sitting right there pretty much essentially in a first place tie in the win column, half a game back of Skidmore in what is certainly shaped up to be a really interesting race at the top of the conference.
Yeah, it's been a great year for us and a great year for the conference. We've had some great wins out of conference with some of the teams, and it's been super competitive, with right at the top, Skidmore, Clarkson, and Hobart, and then right after that, RIT and St. Lawrence are just battling for that 4th spot in our conference tournament. So, we're really happy with how we've played and where we're at, and gave ourselves a chance to get to the last day with a chance to win the conference.
Yeah, we should remind everybody, this is a team that was 16-10 last year. The year before that, 17 wins, 16 wins the year before that. So already kind of playing with house money, as you've had the most wins in recent memory at 19-5. And again, 12-3 in conference play, which batters last year's total, which was the best you'd had again in recent memory. So you've only, you've scattered some losses throughout that, but you gotta be thrilled with how your teams responded this year and what position you guys have put yourselves in.
Yeah, no question. Last night we were fortunate to beat our crosstown rival St. Lawrence, and it gave us the highest win total we've ever had at the university, and it's just a testament to the guys that we've had and how hard they work. I was fortunate to walk into a situation that was set up pretty nicely with kids that are just terrific kids that are completely selfless, and they don't care who scores or who rebounds as long as we do it together, and they compete and work hard every day. And it's kind of, paid off, and we can see it, in our win total, and have a chance to, win the conference, which the first day I got here, every guy in the team came into my office and said, Coach, I want to win the conference. And I said, well, let's go and try.
Yeah, we should point out you are in your first year as head coach for Clarkson after Mark Gilbride moved down the road, as it were, to RPI. You become the 13th coach in program history. This opportunity, is it one of those that kind of falls in your lap and you got to jump for it? How does that all transition for you?
Well, I was in a pretty good situation when I was at Case Western Reserve the last 5 years. But my family being from upstate New York, my wife from upstate New York, you know, and there's always a drawback. But being in a good situation, I wasn't going to, you know, just go any place. I wanted to go to a school that I felt comfortable with academically, someplace that I could, you know, sell to kids that, you know, if they tear their knee or break their ankle, they're still going to get a great education and walk out of here and be super successful. So I was very picky in what I went for, and the timing kind of worked out for me. And, you know, and I'm just, you know, I'm thrilled with the situation that I've been in, and, you know, just I've been fortunate to work with just terrific kids.
I should point out Case Western Reserve having a really good season the year after you left. I'm not just saying there's any correlation, but I'm certainly hoping for your sake that it translates. But it has. I mean, you guys, again, I mean, we're playing with house money. If you really think about it from the Golden Knights' perspective, this is the best season they've had in a while. You said there were certainly good students left behind, as it were, to take over the program, or not take over, but kind of continue it. You've got, what, 3-4 seniors on this squad, 4 seniors on the squad, really only a handful of juniors, and then it kind of steeply drops off. I have a feeling the recruiting battles are where you're going to have to try and change things in the next few years.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we have 4 seniors. 3 of them are playing 30 minutes a game right now. You know, one, John Coleman, set our school record in scoring 3 games ago. So those guys are just the heart and soul of our team. They're the guys that are every day. They're just great leaders that work hard, and they do a lot by demonstration, and, you know, and how they go about their business. And then it's the guys that are the sophomores that, you know, when they make shots and, you know, they play well is when we do really well. We're very tough to beat when our sophomores play well. But our seniors, they bring it every day, and our juniors are as good of a group as we could ask. So, you know, we have a nice collection, but, I mean, it's when it always comes down to recruiting and, you know, how you can keep it going, and because that's, you know, we're having a special year, and, you know, you don't want to make it a special year. You want to make it, you know, a special program. And to do that, you have to win those recruiting battles.
Talking to Jeff Gorski here from Clarkson. Team is 19-5 overall, 12-3 in Liberty League Conference. You only are putting up about 60 a game, so there aren't a lot of players to talk about in double figures. You talked about Coleman, 17.5 points a game and 6 rebounds a game, shooting 55% from the floor. And watch out, he's a decent outside shooter as well. Felix Abango, your junior, at 13.2 points a game, and the team's leading rebounder at 7 rebounds a game. Then you get back into the senior group in Dylan, is it Hodowns?
Hodowns, yep.
Hodowns, I'm sorry, 9 points a game. And then Charles McAllister at 7.6 points a game, again, another senior. So, obviously, as you say, being led by the upperclassmen, you do have the junior in Abango who's making a difference there as well. But it almost feels like it's kind of strange. You're in your first year. You've got a bunch of seniors on this squad. You don't have a lot of youth on this squad. Can you take advantage of that, being that it is your first year?
Oh, yeah. I mean, you couldn't ask for a better situation to have leadership, kids that are great kids that totally bought in to what I was trying to sell right when I got here. We don't score a ton of points, but we're very efficient. You know, we score over, you know, 1.7 points or 1.07 points per possession. So we just don't play a high possession game. We're efficient. We shoot it well. We don't turn it over. And that's all, you know, the culture that was built here and the things that I'm trying to preach as well. You know, we assist in almost 70% of our baskets. So, again, we don't score a ton, but we defend very well and we play selflessly.
Again, you're sitting, you know, essentially in a tie for this conference. You've got a game left to go. And, of course, it's against Skidmore. Well, it seems appropriate. We do have that theme going this show where you get the big game coming up, as it were. And, obviously, a win over Skidmore would be huge. And would kind of solidify possibly a first place. We don't want to assume anything. They've got 2 games left. They still got to play St. Lawrence here on Friday before taking you guys on a rare Sunday game. Well, of course, you know, you're also in the race there with Hobart, and I'd be kidding myself if I tried to figure out all the tiebreakers in this scenario. Now, of course, Hobart also under a new coach and kind of surging here late in the season. Makes for an interesting finish to the year. How do you think this finishes out? What do you think your chances are to be able to bring the tournament through Alumni Gymnasium?
Well, I mean, we don't control our destiny in bringing the conference tournament here. because of Hobart has beat Skidmore twice, and that's one of the major tiebreakers. But we like our chances to win the conference. We've got to, even if it's only a share of the conference, it's still something, that at the beginning of the year it was never, hey, I want to make the conference tournament. It was like, I want to win the conference. So to do that, we get to play Skidmore, the team in front of us, and the team that, I wouldn't rather have it any other way. I don't want to play a ninth place team in the last day just to win the conference. I want to play the team that's ahead of us that has earned it, so therefore we're earning it. It's no one's given it to us, and we've had kids that have had that goal all year, and they've played like it.
Of course, you've become big Union fans, I'm assuming, as Hobart will take on Union to wrap up the season. So I'm sure you're looking forward to Union maybe knocking off Hobart and giving yourselves a chance.
I'd be lying if I said I wasn't a Union fan.
Yeah, exactly.
Chris Murphy does a great job, and he's one of my best friends. And I used to work at Union. I was an assistant there for 3 years. Yep. But I'd be lying if I said I wasn't pulling for that.
You talk about your roots. You certainly know this region. You played at Utica for 4 years, among being a triple sport threat. You kind of played the sports I wish I could have played in college. You played 4 years of basketball, which I did not, but you played goalie for Utica, which I played for my alma mater, though I think you played in about 30 more games than I did. And, of course, you also played golf for 2 seasons. I really feel bad for you with that third one, though. But you then, as you point out, you were an assistant coach at a number of different places. It kind of stayed in the area, and even when you were over in Case Western, you're not that far from the region, so you know this region pretty well. I've talked to a couple of East Region coaches over over this season and talked about how the East feels like it's been down a bit. What's your take on the East Region? Is there a threat that can come out of this region?
Yeah, that I don't know. I mean, if you want to count NYU as an East Region team, and they are in the regional rankings, they can beat anybody. Right. I've seen NYU a handful of times this year, and they're 2 big guys, and
they're scary.
The new transfer Akeem there. I mean, they're as talented as anybody, and they're tough to beat, and I think that they could definitely come out and make a run. After that, I don't know. I know St. John Fisher's having a really special year, and they're super well coached and are competitive defensively. So if you can defend, you can play with anybody, and I think that's what our region does well. Is it does defend well, and that translates. Do we have a lot of big bodies like the Wisconsin League or the UAA? No. So that's going to affect us, when it comes to tournament time. But I do think it's a competitive region. It's a balanced region. I just don't know if there's a star program right now with Rochester not having the year that they normally have, other than NYU.
Is this something that can change? I mean, Hobart certainly, and when Mike Neer was there, and then Rochester, of course, when Mike Neer was there, has had some success. It's not like Skidmore hasn't had some success, and some other schools, Utica, obviously, while you were there, made a nice run to the Sweet 16. It's not that we haven't seen that success, but it seems inconsistent. Some say it comes down to recruiting, and that maybe the talent pool isn't there as much as it used to be. Do you have to spread your wings maybe a little further outside the normal upstate New York area?
No question. No question. I mean, there's a lot of schools in upstate New York all competing for the same kids, and you can't all get the ones you want.
Yeah.
So that's one of the things that really attracted me to a school like Clarkson, is that I can get out there nationally, and any kid that wants to study in the engineering field or the business field or a STEM field, that this is a great institution that can set them up for life. And it doesn't matter if you're from Seattle or Southern California or Florida or Texas. You can be successful here, and the degree translates. So I do think that this is something that's important to make your program stand out. And in the East region, or whatever region you're in, specifically for us in the East region, I do think it's important to spread your wings, as you said, to expand your recruiting base.
You're sitting 6th in the regional rankings. I'm pretty sure you know it well enough. That probably means you got to win the AQ. Skidmore and Hobart are ahead of you, obviously, and that could change in the next week or two. But still, it feels like you got to win this AQ, or there's no NCAA hopes.
Oh, no question. That's something that most people that aren't looking at those kind of numbers and understand and have been through it wouldn't get. But I totally agree. We have to win that AQ. You have to win the conference tournament, and that's how it is. Most of the schools in our region.
Yeah.
when it comes down to strength of schedule stuff, and sometimes it's a little more difficult to schedule great record teams. When you're 3 hours from the nearest highway, and people don't want to play you.
Of course, this year you played St. Joseph's, Vermont. You played Morrisville State, SUNY Canton and Wells, Oswego State, Potsdam, Elmira, Cazenovia, Springfield, up at Springfield, and then you got into conference play. Obviously, it wasn't your schedule. What's your mentality going forward, knowing the region the way you do, knowing, as you pointed out, that you got to do some things here to improve your stats? Is the spreading your wings going to also maybe apply to getting out of state and playing some games, or getting some those to come to you?
Well, yeah, I mean, you'd like to play some tough games, and it's important to play good games, but it's also important to play games you can win.
Yeah, sure.
If you play, five teams that are all top whatever in the country, and you don't win any of them, well, it's almost not good enough to play. You got to win some games to build some confidence and do whatever. But I'm under the mentality that I'm not afraid to play anybody. I will play anybody, but it's not as easy just to say, hey, there's a good team in Massachusetts, let's go play them, because it's a 4 and 5 hour trip, and we can only make them on weekends because you're not going to take kids out of class on a weekday. So there's a lot more to it than just saying, I want to go play the best teams. There are good teams around here that, are successful every year that I think we can, start a series with, and I would like to do that. But, you have to make those work. I mean, we only really schedule about 3 games a year, because we're going to host a tournament, we're going to go to a tournament, and we're going to play Potsdam and Canton every year. So out of conference, we're talking about 3 other games. This year it happened to be, Wells, Oswego, and Elmira for us this year.
Yeah, and certainly the win over Oswego, pretty solid. They're having a pretty darn good season themselves. Not knocking that. I'm just pointing out, by the way, going up to SUNY Canton for you guys may not be the end of the world, but
yeah,
it's not the easiest of trips. Well, Coach, I appreciate you coming on the show. It's great to see Clarkson back in the conversation, as it were. Again, big game coming up against Skidmore. Of course, you got to go on the road. So the last question I've got for you is, what's the message to the team in the locker room?
Well, it's the same thing we said last night after the win. You gave yourself a chance. Now all you got to do is take advantage of it. They're the team right in front of you. They're the team that's going to control everything. But we get to control our own destiny and, what we do. And, it's a team that doesn't need to be motivated, so I don't really have to say much other than, let's get to work.
Well, I appreciate it, and good luck getting to work here coming up on that Sunday game. As always, though, we give the coach the final word. Any final thoughts you want to share with those who may be tuning in?
Oh, I just want to say thanks for having me, and what a great job you guys do for all of Division III sports and Division III basketball in particular.
Well, thanks, Coach. I appreciate it. Good luck the rest of the way. Good luck on that 3-hour trip to down south, as it were. Enjoy that. Hopefully the weather cooperates with you, and we'll look forward to seeing how it turns out on Sunday.
Thanks for having me.
Coach Jeff Gorski joining us here on the Hoopsville Hotline. Appreciate him taking the time to do so. Again, they got one last game left. They'll be taking on Skidmore, who's got 2 games left, and of course they're going to have to head southeast to pull that off. And we wish them luck. Great to see again, as we mentioned, the Golden Knights back in the conversation, as it were. We're going to take another break. When we come back, we'll jump from New York to the east coast of Maryland. We'll jump down to College of St. Mary's and talk to Coach Chris Harney. You're listening to Hoopsville, presented by D3Hoops.com and the National Association of Basketball Coaches. If you've got questions for us or our guests, tweet us at D3Hoopsville or hashtag Hoopsville. Email us hoopsville at D3Hoops.com or join us on Facebook at Facebook.com/Hoopsville. More Hoopsville right after this.
We've got more schools than Division I, more fans than Division II, and more upsets than March Madness. There's 800 programs with over 11,000 games leading to 2 national championships. And we've been covering it all for over a decade. From Eastern to Occidental, from Puget Sound to Piedmont, from Southwestern to the University of New England, and from Hope to Calvin. Nobody covers Division III basketball like we do. We're at D3Hoops.com at www.d3hoops.com.
I used to never really talk. Ever. I was scared and shy. It was hard to look at people's faces. I was afraid if I said something wrong, everyone would laugh at me. But then I started to play golf with Special Olympics. I made friends and won lots of gold medals. But I learned more than just playing golf. Special Olympics helped me to find my voice. And now everyone else is speechless.
Welcome back to Hoopsville. Hope you are enjoying the show. It is the 19th of February, this Thursday show, talking about conference races and certainly the run to the end. As it were, really 10 days left in the regular season. A lot will be determined in the next 10 days, as it is crazy across Division III all season long, especially on the men's side. Conference races are heated up. Big games coming up here on the weekend that will determine a lot, or teams just got done playing big games that will determine a lot. Just got done talking to Clarkson. As we point out, there's a team who's going to be playing Skidmore on Sunday for a chance to at least secure maybe second and maybe an outside chance at first. And so that's important to them, certainly. Well, for the St. Mary's Seahawks, things are a little bit about the same. They want to. They've wrapped things up with a big win over Christopher Newport to wrap up the end of the season, at least to have things come through their neck of the woods in the Capital Athletic Conference. They still have one game left against Southern Virginia and certainly don't want to stumble there either. So we figured it was about darn time we talked to St. Mary's. And so joining us on the Hoopsville hotline is Coach Chris Harney, who is now win 201 in his career at St. Mary's. Congratulations, Coach.
Thanks a lot, Dave. I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
201 was sweeter than 200.
I'm sure it was. As you said to me off air, it's nice to get that monkey off your back, as it were, and get that regular season title wrapped up, so things at least have to go through the O'Brien ARC Arena and Ed Cole Court.
Yeah. I think, I've said this before, that, and this isn't any slight to the fans, but coaches really understand how hard it is to win a regular season title. It's, I think it's one of the things that maybe gets overlooked, by fans of the game, but it's really difficult. You have every team in your league gunning for you, and the pressure of, being in that first spot, as you know, and as you see throughout different conferences, there's teams that'll start out in first for a while, but then they succumb to the pressure, I think. And sometimes teams will take over late in the season to get that spot. But we're happy to secure it. I think we're undefeated at home this year, and we feel like it's a huge advantage for us when we play at home. So with our fans and our arena. So I am breathing a little bit of relief today. Yes.
Been through a couple interesting years in the Capital Athletic Conference. It started off, a couple years ago. Status quo, then you guys dominating the league. Wesley certainly playing a major role, and then last year Christopher Newport enters the fray, and along with Southern Virginia and Harrisburg, but Christopher Newport entering certainly shook everything up. They're now in the running along with yourselves and Wesley. Mary Washington comes out of nowhere and has a tremendous season, getting to the Elite Eight. And then this year, I think a lot of eyes thought, well, Wesley might do well, but they're struggling. Christopher Newport certainly down from what we're used to, but Marymount enters the fray, though they may be down and out now after a major injury. Salisbury is in the mix. They're sitting in second place in the conference. Mary Washington, having an 0-10 season outside the conference, has now, I think, clinched a spot for the conference playoffs. It's just been topsy-turvy, as you point out, closing right down to the end. It's got to be interesting to be coaching the CAC, because in the last 3 years, it's been anything but status quo.
Yeah, I mean, everything you said is correct. The one thing I would add is, in my opinion, that I think Salisbury is right now playing some of the best basketball that I've seen. And that's one of the tough things. I know I've talked to you, I've talked to, other people, we talk about the regional rankings. And I think that one of the hard things for me as a coach, and I know this by speaking for all the coaches, it's just so difficult to judge a team by the early performance, you know, and it's, you know, you kind of get caught up in, look what they did against this team in November. And it's, you know, I mean, by February, you can be a completely different team. And I think Salisbury is a perfect example of that. I honestly, I would not want to play Salisbury right now. I don't care anywhere in the country. They are just playing great basketball right now. And I think that their record does not reflect just how good they are playing right now. I mean, they have a good record, but I think they're even better. I believe they've won something like 8 in a row or 7 in a row. But they are a very good team right now. And you know, the old adage, you want to play well late, not early.
Yeah.
So I think all those kind of things, you know, to me as a coach, it's one of the things that I look at when, you know, because these regional rankings are so important, but they just are so weighted on performance early. And I know that that's the facts, you know, I mean, and that's what we have to deal with. You know, the idea is you're supposed to be successful throughout, but, you know, I mean, we just get handed a lump of clay right at the beginning, and we got to kind of piece it all together. And, you know, some teams play great early and fold late, and some really put it together late. But I think overall, we're always looking to play our best basketball come playoff time.
Of course, Salisbury's won 6 in a row, 9 of their last 10. You guys have won 11 in a row. Really 12, or not even 12, I should say. Let's see, 13, 15, 17 of your last 18. And what's interesting, Coach, is you guys, you know, a lot of people I talk to in the Mid-Atlantic, because I don't talk to you necessarily to get a gauge on your team. I want to hear other people's opinions. And at the beginning of the season, they said, watch out for the Seahawks. But you guys kind of had a bit of a rough start. You beat Bridgewater to start. You lost to Eastern Mennonite, then lost to Delaware Valley. Certainly not bad losses, but just 2 losses out of the gate. And then, of course, you guys got I'm going to use the word screwed by Mother Nature. Thanks to the winter started with a bang in Buffalo, and it started with 2 cancellations for you guys. You lost the game against Nazareth, and then the follow-up game after that up at Buffalo State. So really, you kind of had this big lull there in 2 games that you kind of lost that were going to be important. Mm-hmm. But that's kind of got it out your doldrums, I would almost say. Marymount got that early win. Christopher Newport got you in mid-January, but otherwise it's been all Seahawks. What was the beginning of the season, and what is now? Well,
I definitely try to schedule the toughest teams I can find. Mm-hmm. I think Mennonite I have all the respect in the world for them and Coach Dean. They're an unbelievable program. I remember watching that game from where I was sitting, thinking like I was watching a Division II battle. Watching this, I mean, Falk at center and some of the guards at Crump. I mean, these guys are just, incredible Division III players. But I'll say this, Del Val, Eastern Mennonite, even Nazareth was in that. Those were all chosen games. Those guys were all, I believe, either 1 or 2 in their coaches' preseason bowls, or maybe in Mennonite's case 3, but still that's high in the ODAC. We scheduled those games because we really predicted that all those teams were going to be quality opponents and help our strength of schedule. And for us, I think we got out of there, and like all teams, we battled a lot of little things. I think for us, it was chemistry. I mean, we were throwing together some new players. We had Tanner Brooks transfer in and immediately step into a playing role, and he'd never played with these guys. And then again, lineup wise, we just kind of we shuffled through some injuries and the kind of the usual thing that everybody goes through, and then out of that, I think we've emerged with just this incredible chemistry right now. I mean, we're just really playing great team basketball. And then I obviously, cannot forget Nick Laguerre. I mean, in my opinion, he is the best player I've ever coached, and I've coached some good ones, and I've coached some All-Americans. And he is, without a doubt, the best I've ever seen or coached. The basketball he's playing right now it's unstoppable. I mean, he's facing double and triple teams every night. And it's really fun to watch. And he still does it within a team concept. I think he has, he's 5-6 assists every night.
Yeah, and that's what's interesting is I think you guys might be flying a little bit under the radar. We know you've got this talent on the team, and Laguerre has certainly been one of those guys who's been around for a long time, been starting since he was a freshman. But I think it's the fact that you don't have that dominating force necessarily that's jumping out at people on this squad. I mean, we look at the stats, and certainly the stats tell us one story versus something else, and I know you don't have them in front of you, but Laguerre certainly has 21.5 points a game, and he's handing out a ton of assists. But it's Tanner Brooks at 13.5, 12 points from Troy Spurrier, and that's about your big threesome. You got some other guys certainly contributing. Don't want to knock that away. Is this maybe one of those scenarios where everyone knew Laguerre was good, so the 21.5 points a game is, okay, so that's Laguerre, and then everything else is not noticed?
Yeah, I think a little bit. I think it's one of those situations now where it's we're seeing triangle and 2, box and 1 on a nightly basis. I really think, teams have tried everything. They've tried to make it about stopping him. They've tried to just do single coverage. I mean, I know without the junk defenses, he's hit in the upper 20s, and he's done it with not a lot of shot attempts. That to me is the most impressive stat for him. Is we're not talking about a guy who's just taking a ton of shots. I mean, he's just really picking and choosing and finding his shots within the offense, and still, like I said, at the same time, just involving the other guys with the team concept. And that's, again, just feeds into our chemistry right now. I mean, these guys just are really, they really like each other, and they enjoy playing together, and that's why we're doing well. I mean, it's really kind of the tail of the tape.
Another thing that jumps out at me, and I'm going to have a little fun with you here for a moment, but 2/3 of the squad is listed as guards. That being said, Danya Jackson's 6'5", Reggie Pittman is 6'5", and I would argue in Division III that's more of a wing and forward position than it is a guard. But you've only listed 4 guys at forward, and Spurrier, Hurley, Jordan Jr., and Carrington, and 1 guy at senior, and I can't say his last name. I'm sorry. Biniak. Thank you. Brain just completely shut down when I went to say that. Of course,
MacGyver. I mean,
MacGyver. I like that.
That's the name you just can't get by.
Absolutely. MacGyver's perfect for me. Of course, he's 6'7" at a senior, and Charles Carrington's 6'8" at forward. I should say. MacGyver is But so by listing, you guys are a smaller team than you usually have been in the past. Is that changed your coaching strategy? Have you guys altered a little bit of what you did? Because back when you guys were really good, and it's not that long ago, certainly, we're talking 2-3 years ago, you had a really nice inside presence, but you certainly went through the guards here. But here it's looking like you're going through a lot through the guards.
We are. I would say, again, one of the things about Division III is we can't always get exactly what we want in our recruiting class. I've heard some coaches use the term that, bigs are like pitchers in baseball, lefty pitchers.
Sure.
Sometimes they're hard to get. I agree with you. We are a different team. I think this is probably one of the biggest teams guard-wise I've ever had. And we have changed our style to fit that. I think if anyone watched our game last night against Newport, they would have seen that. It was a very, very physical game, and it was Newport, driving and kicking, and St. Mary's posting up their guards a lot, and that was really ended up working to our advantage. And that's something, it's by design. I mean, the recruit, the overall size of everyone is not quite by design, but I like to always look at what we have and really shape what we're doing to fit, those guys and put them in a position to be successful. So that is something we're doing. And, in the past, I was just modeling what I saw at the Final Four. When I would go to Salem, I'd see the teams in the finals. A lot of it was high-low teams and, teams that were very deep at the forward position. I think especially when you get out in the Midwest. All those teams come in with just tremendous size, it seems like. And a little bit of, again, just looking at the teams that have success. I mean, obviously, I think we all know that NESCAC does well, and some of the Wisconsin conferences are out that way. And all those teams are very deep with forwards. So I kind of always felt like in order to compete against those guys, you had to model, a little bit of what they were doing. But it's not always perfect, as we try to do it through recruiting, but, it's not always what we want, and a good coach, you got to adapt. So that's kind of what we've been doing now, I think.
Chris Harney joining us, head coach for St. Mary's. Team, again, 19-4 overall, 15-2 in the Capital Athletic Conference. Should point out we're actually talking to him on tape because he's busy recruiting this evening, and so taking the time as he drives up to the Baltimore area. It could have just kept driving right into the house, Coach, and joined me in the studio.
I could do that.
Yeah, some year we're going to get you to do that. Listen, 200 wins, nothing to shake a stick at, especially when you've done it over the course of 10 years. You're averaging 20 wins a season, and not too shabby, as it were. And obviously some years better than others. 27-4 back in 2013, for example. What's it like to not only be a 20-game winner at your alma mater, but we've discussed this before, having played there, and certainly St. Mary's was pretty decent when you were there, but to be able to transition this program into at least a team that may not be nationally ranked all the time, but is at least in the national conversation and at least on the minds of those when they talk about the best of Division III, especially in the Mid-Atlantic.
It's really special. It's and you said it, like to have the opportunity to be able to go back to my alma mater, and coach at this program, and again, it's not just me. I've had some really great assistant coaches, and a lot of people helped me along the way. But to be able to get the program, in the conversation on a national level, I take a lot of pride in that. I can remember being a player at St. Mary's, and like it was yesterday, we were in a tournament on Hampton, Sydney, and I remember looking up at the rafters, and thinking, wow, we're playing a powerhouse, and it was like Coach Shaver was coaching there, and I remember thinking, like, this is a big time program, and so now I kind of chuckle a little bit every time, people kind of mention St. Mary's nationally, and I'm always like, wow, I wonder if people come in our gym and see our banners and kind of make that comment, and I take pride in that. I think that it's a lot of fun for me what we've built, and really for me, like just with our crowd, we get a great home crowd, and it's a lot of the local community along with the college community, and it's fun. There's no pro team down in Southern Maryland, and the whole local community has really adopted our program, and it's just been like sold out at home games, and I think the crowd's been a big factor in our record at home. And you've been down there for some of our home games. I mean, it's a great atmosphere that we really put together down there. And it just, again, it makes me feel like it's a big team effort. It's the players, my assistants, and again, the community around us that kind of really shows up and supports the team. And so, in my opinion, it's like, it's small college basketball, but it's a great environment. And I think we do a good job of giving our guys a good experience over 4 years. I think it's a fun place to play. And again, the fact that I graduated from St. Mary's just makes it extra special for me, knowing that I'm kind of giving back to, a school that I feel kind of put me in this position in my life right now. It's a dream job.
You made five NCAA tournaments in 6 years, really, until last year, and that made the seventh year where you guys missed out. Of course, your breakout season was 2008 when you guys were surprise CAC champs. Made to the NCAA tournament, then surprised Ben Strong and Guilford, who were penciled in, I think I would argue, maybe even penned into the Final Four. Knocked them off in the first round, got all the way out to Wash U, being a bracket buster.
I would love to know the Massey numbers for that game, if anyone could ever figure that out. I'll bet that was one of the biggest.
That was probably one of the bigger upsets. I mean, you guys ended up getting all the way to Wash U to the Sweet 16. You ended up forcing a flight that no one wanted to see.
Well, that season, don't forget that season. If you could check it, we were 11-5.
Yeah,
and we lost 5 games in a row, or 6 in a row, I believe. It was 5 or 6 in a row to get to 11 or 11-11, something like. I know it was 5 or 6 because I remember.
Thanks to the great D3Hoops.com, I can tell you lost 5 in a row, including 7 of 7 of 9.
Yeah, I remember wondering.
It was ugly.
Thinking about a career change at that point.
Well, and then the scary part is then you went 3 of 4, losing 3 of 4 in February before finally rattling it off, and you got wins over Guilford, you got a win over Widener, and then you got that Millsaps unceremoniously punted you guys, but that was
Yeah.
kind of the coming out. You missed the tournament the next year, but then it was Sweet 16, Elite 8,
Yeah.
second round, Elite 8. Of course, that second Elite 8 being in Salem, your first visit to Salem, when that, of course, was a year that we had the Final Four in Atlanta. But then
Great
you miss out.
experience,
Then you miss out last year, and
Yeah.
and knowing you, that bugs you. And I'm kind of curious, how much has that motivated you? How much has that motivated the team, especially the likes of Nick Laguerre?
I think yes to all those questions. It's definitely motivated us. I mean, we talked about it as a team, and if anybody knows me, that you can be sure it motivated me. So as I speak in this car, as I drive, I mean, I'm as competitive as they come, and I definitely, I think the program I've created, I try to, instill that in our players, and it was tough for us not making it last year. We definitely have built something where I feel like our upperclassmen really try to pass things down to our younger players, and it was hard on our seniors last year. I think that was something that really, really was frustrating for them. And I know, in a way, I would really give a lot of the credit to the season we're having right now to those seniors last year. Because I think on their way out, I think they really let the underclassmen know how much they regretted, maybe not, giving a little more, in that chase to make the tournament. And I think that left a big impression on these returning guys. And so, that's what you hope for as a coach. I mean, and again, when as coaches, we try to build programs and we try to, have some kind of like core philosophy and things. And that's one of mine, definitely, is that I really want my upperclassmen always to kind of pass things down. And even in adversity and failure, and I don't call that a failure because I think we had a good year. And I think we did a lot of good things last year, but not making the tournament certainly was a disappointment. And like I said, I felt like those seniors, even though that was a frustrating moment, I still feel like the great lesson there was that they passed that on, that they overcame that and passed on to our underclassmen that, look, next year you got to get the job done. You got to pick the flag up. And right now we haven't gotten there yet, and we're still working at that. This winning the regular season title, I really believe, is a big step towards trying to get to the tournament. And we place a lot of emphasis on that, winning that regular season title. So we still have a lot of work to do. I've mentioned earlier about Salisbury. I mean, Christopher Newport, unbelievable opponent, unbelievable team. Marymount, unbelievable opponent, unbelievable team. And again, we go down the list. I think our league is a great league. I think we have great coaches in our league that look at Southern Virginia. I mean, just, again, you can't fall asleep on anybody. And these coaches do a great job of preparing their teams. And so we still got a lot of work ahead of us, to try and make this tournament. But I like where we're at right now. We're playing well. And we're just going to try to focus on the next game and see what happens.
Speaking of which, you look at your SOS, it's a 480 right now. It's certainly not where you probably would like to have it. Losing those two games certainly didn't help you in that department. But at the same time, you look at your conference, and the bottom of the conference has been hurting everybody, and I think we saw it last year for the first time in the sense that you didn't get in that large bid.
Yeah.
How much do you, obviously you need to affect your out-of-season scheduling, and that's what you can do, and you certainly, as you point out, you played Eastern Mennonite, you played teams that you tried to boost those numbers, and certainly you always look that way. You never shy away. But is there conversations that then take place in conference? And I ask this of coaches around the country, and I get different answers. So I'm kind of curious. Is there conversations now in conference of, hey, guys, help us out? I know we're at the top and we're asking the bottom to do a little bit more, but is there something we can do here to facilitate this being a conference that can get multiple bids? Or is that a topic you can't broach?
Honestly, and I'm not saying this to be a nice guy, I have a lot of respect for the coaches in our league. I mean, we have some incredible young coaches, some incredible veteran coaches. These guys are working their tails off. I mean, D3 is like Noah's Ark. Each one of these programs is unique and different. We're all saddled with a different set of, positives and negatives, as far as, our admissions, our recruiting, our budgets, all those things. There's just so many different variables. So it's difficult for me to really, judge or, I couldn't go to a coach and say, hey, come on, let's do better. These guys are doing everything they can. I think, and I'm sure you'd agree with me, the Mid-Atlantic is just, it's D3 basketball. There's recruits, there's schools everywhere. Pennsylvania, that's like 1,000, Division III colleges. This is a competitive region for recruiting, for all of the above. Being a head coach of a Division III program in this area is just an all-encompassing task, and I think these guys are doing the best they can. It's something with our league. I think right now you're seeing, obviously I think you see some consistency with some programs at being at the top. But, I think that these other programs with time are going to improve. We've had a lot of coaching turnover, and I think some of those programs are trying to find their way, and it takes a while. For me, we got going pretty quick, but it still took a lot of recruiting and a lot of, nights in the car and a lot of hot dogs to get those guys in there. Ultimately, your recruiting is what, fuels your success. I don't think anyone would disagree with that. And I think for some of the schools in our league, it's just a process of getting their feet under them and getting some recruiting classes in, get that depth, to make them more competitive. I do. I think the coaches are doing everything they can. I just think sometimes it just takes time,
But as a result, you got to win this conference.
Yes. Yeah. And that's the thing. And we put a lot. I've said it before. We put a lot of emphasis on winning this regular season title. I always say it's the first step. Before you even think about anything else, this has to be your first focus. Just for the at-large ramifications and things of that nature. You're just not really. It's difficult to go anywhere as a 2 seed.
Yeah. No, I hear you. Hey, Bud, I appreciate you taking the time. Certainly great chatting with you. I can't believe we waited this long. Normally we chat with you sooner.
No problem.
As always, we give the coach the final word. Any final thoughts you have to share with those who may be tuning in?
Yeah, I would say, and I think I've said this before, I just want to, thank you and thank all the guys, that you have working with you. And really, I know I follow D3 Hoops religiously, and, all these guys that kind of do the field reports, and, it's really great what you guys are doing for these, student athletes, these young men out there that are playing, on non-scholarship basketball and, putting in countless hours, towards this experience that's D3 basketball. And it's, and to all the coaches and again, to all these people that we're trying to give these guys a really great experience. We're all trying to do that. And I just think it's something that, the reward is just seeing these guys when they make shots or win a game. It's, it's really fun to watch. These are just things they're going to remember their whole lives. And they won't always remember, the reports or the write-ups and things like that. And so you guys definitely always deserve a big thank you, I think, because it does mean a lot to these guys. And you're touching people's lives. I know it sounds a little hokey, but I really believe that. And I think it's a special thing that you guys do. So thanks from me.
Well, thank you, Coach. Appreciate you taking the time. Good luck the rest of the season. We'll obviously enjoy watching the last 10 days of Seahawks regular season basketball, and hopefully we'll see you dancing in the NCAA tournament as well.
Appreciate it. Would love to see you at Salem.
Absolutely. Take care of yourself.
Okay.
Chris Harney joining us here on the Hoopsville Hotline. Again, team is 19-4 overall, locking up the regular season title with a win over Christopher Newport, so everything has to go through St. Mary's in the Capital Athletic Conference tournament. Of course, they will then play Southern Virginia coming up here on Saturday before taking a few days off and starting the CAC semifinals on the 26th as they get a first-round bye in the CAC tournament. Thanks, Coach Chris Harney, for joining us. Got to take another break. When we come back, plenty more Hoopsville ahead. If you got any questions for us, tweet us at D3Hoops or hashtag Hoopsville. Email us, hoopsville@d3hoops.com, or join us on Facebook at facebook.com/Hoopsville. You listen to Hoopsville, presented by D3Hoops.com and the National Association of Basketball Coaches. More Hoopsville right after this.
Every season starts with hope and a dream to play for the ultimate title, to become NCAA national champions. And you can experience it live at the 2015 NCAA Division III Men's Basketball Championship, March 20th and 21st in Salem, Virginia. Hosted by the Old Dominion Athletic Conference and the City of Salem. Affordable tickets now available. Visit ncaa.com/tickets today and make a date with champions.
We've got more schools than Division I, more fans than Division II, and more upsets than March Madness. There's 800 programs with over 11,000 games leading to 2 national championships. And we've been covering it all for over a decade. From Eastern to Occidental, from Puget Sound to Piedmont, from Southwestern to the University of New England, and from Hope to Calvin. Nobody covers Division III basketball like we do. We're at D3Hoops.com at www.d3hoops.com.
Division III allows you to give yourself to other things.
Having that free time allows me to pursue the things that I want to pursue.
Division III athletics affords students the opportunity to, engage in the other interests in their campus and in their lives outside of that sport.
It allows you to just be able to do everything you want to do. I wouldn't change it for the world.
And there we are. Welcome back to Hoopsville, everybody. Hope you're enjoying this show. We are well past our 2 hours, but at this point, we're going 2.5. Normally on any night, there is so much to talk about and so many people to talk about. I want to thank all our guests so far. If you've got any questions for us, tweet us at D3Hoopsville, hashtag Hoopsville, email us at Hoopsville at D3Hoops.com. Join us on Facebook at Facebook.com/Hoopsville. We're going to hear from Charlie Titus here coming up. One thing I forgot to mention at the beginning of the show that I should have mentioned, that I'm just, some reason, didn't get my brain wrapped around the fact, was how about, we talked about Caltech men. They have won 3 of their last 4 conference games. They've won 3 games in conference, which is more than the last 42 years combined. And then the Caltech women got involved, winning their first conference game in 5 years last year. I love that Caltech is moving towards, I don't know what they're moving toward. They're just moving forward. It's terrific. And hats off to them, to be sure. It's stellar. So we're hopefully going to hear from them. We may hear from them down the road. So we'll see what happens. But first and foremost, somebody talking to us about St. Mary's says St. Mary's at least 20 wins this season. Put them in the dance. Listen, it's not that simple. It's just not that simple. I realize a lot of people don't know this and don't appreciate it, but strength of schedule, results versus regionally ranked opponents, head-to-head competition, common opponent competition, et cetera, is so complex. It's not cut and dry. Just because you have 20 wins does not automatically mean you're in the NCAA tournament. Last year, Staten Island had 2 losses. They were, I think, 24-2, if memory serves. I'll look them up real quick for you. I think they were 24-2 last year. Maybe 25-2. Hold on, just give me a second. 28-3, but I think they may have played some. Hold on, they may have played some other games. Hold on, let's double check this. Yeah, they played some games after that. So take 3 wins off of there. They were 25-3 last year. Did not make the NCAA tournament. Poor SOS. St. Mary's has an SOS of 480 right now. That is danger zone. Some of the things that I have gleaned from many a conversation, I said at the beginning of the show, anybody has lower than a 667 winning percentage, let's just start saying they're out of the NCAA tournament. If they make it, then we're pleasantly surprised. But 667 or below, winning percentage, non-AQ. We're talking at large bids here, Pool C in both men and women, and I'm only talking men right now. There are no Pool Bs. Pool C bid, 667, not making the NCAA tournament. Let's just put that down now. If you have a below 667 winning percentage, you are not making the NCAA tournament. Doesn't matter your other criteria. If some teams make it, great, but let's just start there. Let's have that be a benchmark. Your other benchmark, if your SOS is below 500, you're not making the NCAA tournament as an at-large team, okay? I'm not saying it's not going to happen, but let's set those as benchmarks. 667 winning percentage, 500 SOS. If you are below those lines, let's call them a Mendoza line from baseball, you're not making the NCAA tournament. Let's just start there, and we will build from there. If teams get at-large bids with numbers below that, so be it. But we're starting at so at least we have a line in demarcation to say that's where it stands. St. Mary's has an SOS of 480. It could come up. It won't come up on thanks to Saturday with Southern Virginia, but it could come up with the Capital Athletic Conference tournament 2 games. Could come up. As a result, they might go above 500, and that will help them. They played Christopher Newport on Wednesday. That will help it go up, but Southern Virginia will have it go down. So let's just say they stay at 480. 2 games, potentially Salisbury in the championship game. Let's just argue. Maybe Christopher Newport, Marymount, or somebody in the semifinals. I don't remember off the top of my head. That might allow it to come up. But let's just start demarcation line. 667 and below in your winning percentage and 500 and below in your SOS. Not making the NCAA tournament. That will give you a sense of how this works in Division III. We don't have an RPI. I don't know how an RPI necessarily will translate in Division III. We have too many other variables. I don't know how it would translate. If you've got questions for us, tweet us at D3Hoops or hashtag Hoopsville. Email us, hoopsville at D3Hoops.com, or join us on Twitter. Or join us on Facebook, facebook.com/Hoopsville, Twitter at D3Hoopsville, hashtag Hoopsville. Of course, email Hoopsville, D3Hoops.com. If you have questions for us, please let us know. One of the deans of basketball is probably Charlie Titus out of Mass Boston. We are privileged enough to have Mass Boston at the Hoopsville Classic in its very first year. We certainly enjoyed him being there, and great to meet Charlie Titus. I've been on Mass Boston's campus, but not for basketball, believe it or not. It was for ice hockey, and they're pretty darn good at ice hockey. Anyway, Charlie Titus is retiring at the end of the season. And this week, the Mass Boston Behind the Beacon segment, took a moment to talk to Charlie Titus. We asked if we got permission to run part of that. And so we are running the part of Charlie Titus talking about his career at Mass Boston coming to an end. And this is their segment from Mass Boston.
We had a vision 40 years ago, and I sold that vision to some of the players that we recruited over and over again. So we had hopes, we had dreams, we had aspirations. Along the road, we were sort of trying to make sure that we were fulfilling those dreams and aspirations, that we were doing everything we could to give our basketball team an opportunity to grow and to develop and to become a premier team in the sports world, particularly in New England and hopefully around the country. And it was the role model in the leadership position for the rest of the sports here at the university. It was the first intercollegiate sport that we had. So, being a part of that has been amazing, and it's not a daily thought, but when you look back and you say, gee, this is where we were in 1974. Gee, this is where we were in 1982. Or gee, this is what happened in 1992. It's sort of like, wow, we've been doing okay. Anytime you win a conference championship, that's an accomplishment that you got to be proud of. Particularly in a conference like ours, it's so doggone competitive, and you don't get a free ride at any night. You got to go play every night. I think the 206 championship was a great accomplishment for us, and it was made even sweeter because my son was a part of that team, an important part of that team. A tournament in Miami, it had a couple of Division III teams and Division II teams in the tournament. And the first game, we were matched up against Georgia Southern, which was actually a small Division I team. They were big, 6'10", 6'9", 6'10". And I'm sorry, Georgia Southwest. We were supposed to get killed. The morning before we played that game, I was down in the hotel. It was a hotel on the beach, and I was down getting some breakfast. And all of a sudden, I heard this chant, and I looked out, and it was our whole team running up the beach, chanting. And I'd never seen them do anything like that before. And they ran right by me, and I looked at them, and I'm like, "Hey, what's going on?" They said, "We're getting ready to play, Coach." We went out and won that game. We won it. And the coach actually was so upset, he wouldn't even shake our hands. He put his kids in the van and just took them home. So that was a favorite moment. That was a good one. AJ is a guy who, listen, he grew up in this program. I remember being at practice with AJ in my arms as a baby. You know, there are pictures around here of AJ in the huddle as a little 4 or 5-year-old with the team. So he knew UMass. He went to summer camp here for the summers, and this was home to him. You know, it's rare that you get an opportunity to coach your son. There have been some father and son combinations, but not a whole lot of them. And when you have an opportunity to do that on a team that's a championship team, and to watch your son make the sacrifices that are necessary for his team to win. When we went to play the championship at Keene State, who had beaten us twice that year, and for AJ to step up and just sort of take over that game and to score big time. I mean, he hit critical buckets in that game and became the MVP of that game. Those are special moments that most people just don't get a chance to enjoy. There are a couple of things, and you look at the signs. One is, I never, ever, ever wanted to feel like I was an old coach, quotes. And I don't feel like that now, but I can see it coming. So, you know, when you can see it coming, you're saying, like, you know, the energy level is, I still have energy, but it's not the same. It's not the same energy level. You know, there's never been a time that I can remember from the time I was, I guess, 8, 5, 6 years old, whenever I started playing back with the old Columbia Point Tigers, that I was not in a basketball season. I wasn't preparing for the season. I wasn't a part of a season. There was a vice chancellor here named Lee Tubbs who took a chance on a young 24-year-old guy who had no coaching experience. And then in 1980, he took a chance again on a young 30-year-old guy who had no administration experience and made him the athletic director. So I owe so much to Lee, and sort of his willing to take the gamble, his mentorship through those years, and his belief in me made a big, big difference in my life and my career. And of course, my wonderful wife, who's been with me through this whole journey, and she started with me before the journey started. So, you know, it's hard to go through and not say thank you to those people and let them know how much they really meant to me as I went through this journey. Far too many of them for me to name, but they're there, they know who they are, and they need to know that I know and that I appreciate their being on the journey with me and making sure that the journey was a good one.
Once again, forgot our microphone. I want to thank again Mass Boston for allowing us, athletics department, for allowing us to use that video from their Behind the Beacon series. Came out just today. Happened to spot it just in time. I'm so glad we can use it. Great to hear Charlie Titus talk about his program. Listen, on that token, I'm going to take a page out of the YD3 show. If you have stories that you think deserve to be on Hoopsville, let us know, or the YD3 show, especially if you put videos together. We would love to run them. If they fit and if appropriate, etc., we will run them. So email us, tweet us, etc. If you have any questions for us, tweet us at D3Hoops or hashtag Hoopsville. Email us, hoopsville at d3hoops.com, or join us on Facebook. Facebook.com/Hoopsville. Big week and a half ahead. Big games coming up this weekend as some conference tournaments start, NESCAC, NACC, and other conferences kind of wrap up regular seasons and line up for conference tournament action. Not all bids in conferences are set. Look at the MAC Commonwealth. All the bids are set, but only one seed is set. It's a 5-team tournament. Number 1, Lycoming's locked. 2, 3, 4, and 5. no particular order. Stevenson, Hood, Alvernia, and Arcadia are tied at 9-6. The kicker, none of them play each other. None of them play each other. So they all play, and by the way, Lycoming's off. So all of them are playing the bottom half. The top half, not counting Lycoming, is playing the bottom half. It's unreal how crazy it is in that conference. Other conferences, the number 1 seed is not set. We talked to Averett earlier today in men's basketball. They're playing William Peace basically for that number 1 seed. It is uncanny what's going on in Division III basketball this year, and it's just nuts. By the way, speaking of nuts, you should have seen the end of the Lycoming-Stevenson game. I have never seen a tip in buzzer beater so close. Never seen it that close. It was crazy close. Actually, have it on video. I want to show it to you. We don't have the call, but we have the last shot and so forth. So I'll try and just watch the video and appreciate this. This is the final shot. There's about 5 seconds on the clock. Watch the clock. 7/10, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2. Could you get any closer than that? Just look at how close that is. In his hand, in his hand, in his hand. Still there, still there. Light hasn't gone off yet. Still in his hand, still in his hand. Light goes off, and when we reviewed it, it looked like it was out of his hand. You can't tell there because it's a little blurry, but unbelievable finish in the Lycoming-Stevenson game, to say the least. Lycoming won on that tip-in. Pretty impressive. Pretty darn impressive. We're going to wrap this up. Unless you got questions, tweet us at D3Hoopsville or hashtag Hoopsville. Email us hoopsville at D3Hoops.com or join us on Facebook at Facebook.com/Hoopsville. Don't forget, Sunday we'll be on the air starting at 7 o'clock. Thursday we'll be on the air starting at 7 o'clock. And then a week from Sunday we'll be on the air most likely starting at 6 o'clock and going for several hours. Still working on how we're going to do that. Had some success with last year's women's bracketology, though we did it way too late to do a good job with it. So Pat and I will talk it over, figure out what we might do next week. But stay tuned. Of course, then following Monday on March 2nd, we'll be on the air after the selections have been made and talk to both committee chairs as well. If you have guest ideas, let us know. But certainly we're trying to talk to those who are in play at this point in time, and that will include maybe some upsets as soon as Thursday evening or anybody who may be on the bubble, as it were. Lots to cover in Division III. It is this time of year where it's crazy, and keeping track of it all is certainly hard to do. We love doing this show. We will once again plug, please give us your assistance if you can and donate. We have a fundraising campaign. We've already tweeted tonight about it. We'll tweet it again. We'll try and tweet it as much as we can over the course of the next 10 days to have you, to remind you of it. We certainly would love your assistance. Any amount will help. We are almost 60% to our goal. Our goal this year is half of our goal last year, and our goal last year we beat. So we're essentially a quarter of the way to the mark we raised last year, and last year's money went to new cameras, new microphones, new cables, new lighting, new computer, travel expenses, bills that had been mounting up. All of that got taken care of. Also made some charitable donations with it. We're looking for a little additional help if we can. Try to be humble about it, and humble has not gotten us very far. So I appreciate any help you might be able to provide and willing to provide us here on the show. We will continue to tweet that information out when we get the chance. I guess we're going to wrap it up. Don't see any other questions, so it doesn't seem to be any need for us. Oh, hold on. have to sit here and hope that all the it's a shame their SOS will hurt them if they don't win the CAC. This team is easily a top 62 team in the nation. Okay, let's get one thing out of everybody's mind, because this is true with every single NCAA tournament in all divisions. The championship tournaments are not the top X amount of teams in the country. Let's remember this. You can't have that when you have automatic bids. And the NCAA is built with automatic bids going to conferences. That's in all divisions, including Division I March Madness. That's how you get the mid-majors to get those automatic bids. Arguably, more mid-major teams should be in the NCAA tournament because they probably are some of the best teams in the country, but the big boys get all the bids. But the Division III men's and women's basketball tournaments are not the top 62 and top 64 teams in the country. That's not how it works. We've had top 25 teams not make the tournament. It happens. It happens because there's automatic bids. So the at-large selections come down to criteria. If your criteria is not good enough to be the top 19 teams remaining, you don't make the NCAA tournament. 19 at-large bids. Remember that. 19 at-large bids. That's what is left in the NCAA tournament. 19. So you need to be the best 19 teams left who did not win your automatic qualifier. Go win your automatic qualifier. If you don't, you got to be one of the best 19 teams remaining. There are 442 women's schools in the country. They have 21 at-large bids. Think about that. 442 schools minus the 40-some-odd bids. So let's just say 400 and round it even. 400 teams left and 21 bids. It's kind of the same on the men's side. About a little less than 400 teams, 19 bids available. It's not about being the top 62 or 64 teams in the country. That's not how these championship tournaments are created. That's not the premise behind the tournaments. That's the premise behind professional sports. But even then, you could argue that the top teams still don't get in. Because let's look at the NFL this past season, and you have automatic bid coming from the NFC South with a below 500 team. Right? Got a home game too, right? Were the best teams in the NFL playing in the playoffs? No. Are the best teams playing in the Major League Baseball playoffs? No. Are the best teams playing in any professional playoff? No. There's always a team left out because they're in a particular conference or they just couldn't get the wild card. But there's always a team who gets in because they got that automatic bid. This isn't about the top teams in the country making the NCAA tournament. It's just not it. So St. Mary's, their SOS is killing them at 480. It's too bad it hurts them? Yeah, it's too bad it hurts them. But that's the rules. That's the playing field. That's the guidelines. You're going to sit here and hope all the number ones in each conference win just if the unthinkable happens in the CAC. There are 19 at-large teams hoping everybody wins the AQ that should win the AQ. But I will warn you now, there are some conferences like the WIAC, 2 bids are coming out. Whitewater, Stevens Point, they're going. Randolph-Macon, they're going if they lose the ODAC. Virginia Wesleyan, they're going. There's some conferences where this is a lock for 2 bids. You need to do your job and win games, especially if you have a low SOS. I'm sorry. I get there are good teams left at home. There are good teams left at home every single year. We all know it. Win your games. Win your conference. Win your conference, and this isn't even a conversation point. Again, we'll be on the air Sunday starting at 7 o'clock. Probably going 2.5 hours. Lots to talk about. If you got ideas for us, tweet us at D3Hoopsville or hashtag Hoopsville. Email us hoopsville at d3hoops.com or join us on Facebook at facebook.com/hoopsville and message us. Don't forget the show is available on YouTube, archived immediately after we finish, or you can go right back now and listen to segments. Also, podcast available on SoundCloud and iTunes. We will primarily talk Northeast, Atlantic, South, and West. Central regions next week. However, we may throw in a couple extra teams in there too, as we just have so much to cover in Division III basketball at this time of year. I want to thank everybody for tuning in. I want to thank our guests from Puget Sound, also from DePauw, both women's basketball teams. I want to thank Averett men's basketball, along with Clarkson and St. Mary's men's basketball teams, and also Mass Boston's efforts to get us the Charlie Titus sound. Appreciate all the SIDs who assisted as well. We'll be back on the air, as we mentioned. By the way, the graphic just popped up over my shoulder. Bard has won 11 games this year. How about that, huh? It is just a crazy year. Caltech and Bard having good seasons by their standards. Lots to cover, and if you would be so kind to help us do it, don't forget about the Hoopsville fundraising project. We would love your assistance, and there are great perks to take advantage of. We'd certainly hope you'll take advantage of them. Thank you so much for tuning in tonight. Certainly appreciate you taking the time to do it. Don't forget, regional rankings will be back on Wednesday night next week. Once again, Hoopsville presented by D3Hoops.com and the City of Salem and the NABC, National Association of Basketball Coaches. You've been listening to Hoopsville, presented by those fine groups of people. We hope you will tune in back here on Sunday evening. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Have a good evening. Enjoy the rest of the week. We'll see you back here on Sunday night. Good night, everybody.